Thursday, the 13th of November, 2025. And I didn't do a video yesterday, although I should have, but I got busy driving people to airports and other things. But anyway, a lot, a lot on the go. A lot you can see on channels like Moose on the Loose or Mario for the North or Jasmine Lane. Definitely don't be looking at mainstream media unless you want to laugh and or get frustrated, because again, it's just a bunch of bullshit. And BBC did it right, at least after they did that false um, attack on Trump, making it seem like he incited violence during the January 6th riot. The One of the CEOs resigned, right? And this was also, I believe, because they were going to get sued for a lot of money by Trump. They might still, I don't know. And so, in order to circumvent that, they forced the resignation of this woman. And she's trying to say that they've been non-biased, accurate reporting. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. And so it's about time someone finally has to be forced to resign. This is what Canada should be doing. People like Mercedes Stevenson, people like Rosemary Barton, Cochrane, and so many others, they need to be forced to resign. And people have been saying that for years, which is, again, why they push state-funded media propaganda for the left, because they know that as soon as the conservatives get in, the budget's either going to be they're going to be completely defunded or at least heavily cut the budget, which they should be. With no government should have like a propaganda arm, and we do. And so, yeah, the Dems shut down, or the government shut down in the U.S. That was Democrat led. They wanted that. They wanted to have Trump to have this record of having the longest government shutdown in American history, which is, again, it's so ridiculous. It's so self-serving, and they're doing it just to maintain their kickbacks and the money they get, the sponsorships and the donorships they get because of the organizations they're involved with. And so I would look at, it was over $1 trillion that they wanted to earmark to for illegal immigrants, and so people that have paid into the system for many years, they're feeling the impacts of not getting the services they need, and homeless, addictions, disabilities, where there's longer wait lines to be seen, treated, etc., and or just too expensive. And there are people that are entering illegally that are getting essentially free access to healthcare and things like that, and it's happening in Canada as well. And it's not sustainable because we're not building like the nurse staff and the doctor staff and the hospital staff in general, or the infrastructure in order to maintain or support this. And so we're talking about housing crisis and overpopulation, et cetera. No, we are densely populated in major city or urban areas. Okay. And there is replacement migration going on. Why are we doing this at such a level? Why? This has been admitted by Democrats and liberals as well. This is a large portion of their voter base. And even they know that there will be much less abuse of the system once another party goes in, right? With people that are not corrupted, especially cabinet and the House of Commons now for many years. It's a grift. It has been for a long time. But anyways, so this shutdown, self-serving Democrats, again, they don't care about the people that they're supposed to be serving. They care about themselves and the people that give them money. And it's very evident. And then you had 8 people finally, after the record was already made, that voted with the Republicans. And again, a little too late. And even with that, with the SNAP benefits, which impacted over 42 million Americans and non-Americans, the very next day, and these are just facts, and there's videos on this, hair salons in areas like for people to get weaves, was that like the lineups were like circling buildings, and so people were taking videos of this. I'm only saying this because people are using, some people, not all, but many people are using their SNAP benefits for their own benefit, to get things done for themselves, pay for things for themselves and not their families, and not provide food for their children. And I will also say that Coca-Cola is one of the main items that people are purchasing with SNAP benefits, and we know that Coca-Cola is not healthy at all, causes diabetes. Okay. And the US and Canada, we are more overfed than underfed. Okay. And actually, even across the world, I said this even a few years ago, that across the world, people are dying from being overfed. More people are dying daily because of being overfed than underfed. I hope I'm making sense with that internationally. And so when people talk about privilege with the abled people, people that work out or try to eat healthy, manage their weight, manage their stress, etc., we're being called privileged by people who are overweight because of privilege, because of having so much access to so much food and soda, etc., that you could allow yourself to get to over 300 pounds, 400 pounds. All right. And so that number is increasing. And so with SNAP benefits also comes with more debt for health care or sick care, whatever you want to call it. And so double-edged sword, diabetes and even dementia and issues that people have with cognitive abilities. Also been saying this for years, but now more and more doctors and scientists and academics are calling it type 3 diabetes. And so too much sugar is not a good thing. Healthy fats are good. And Obamacare, a disaster, a disaster. And being subsidized for years again was such a friggin' grift, such a grift. Made insurance way more expensive, longer wait times. Not as bad as Canada, but as for expense, just ridiculous. The amount of money that people have to pay for insurance, and now that under Biden, Obamacare was extended, and so now obviously it's on the table again. So they're blaming the Republicans for this when it had everything to do with Obamacare, the contract itself, or the bill, and nothing to do with who was in power at the time or who's in power at the time right now. While they have to look at re-extending it or not, which I don't think they should do, and because it's looking at, again, at least doubling people's insurance costs, and people are already spending a ridiculous amount of money in the US for healthcare. So are Canadians, but it's coming out of our taxes. Anyway, there should be you should have privatized healthcare and public healthcare. There has to be some kind of a hybrid or combination of both in order to make it where there's an increase in innovation, a decrease in prices, competition, etc. Because anytime the government gets involved in companies, no offense, it always gets way more expensive for us, right? When they get their hands in insurance, that goes way up, whether it be house insurance through the banks, etc. That's a grift. Car insurance, property taxes have increased so much in the last few years. And even Hydro One, there's a guy in cabinet, I forget what his name is, but he's been in the news now because Mark Carney hired him. But he actually worked as an advisory person, some kind of job within Hydro One before getting this position that he has with Carney. And look at the last couple of years, like our electricity prices in Canada across the nation have increased an insane amount. Again, just even in the last year alone. And so, again, as soon as people like this, these grifters that get, for some reason, elected and start working in the House of Commons and cabinet and the experts they hire, things get way more expensive. So less of that, please. Yeah, the budget minister told the truth about the budget. I'm sure people have heard about that. I shared some videos yesterday and the day before saying it's unsustainable, etc. And of course, he got fired. He's supposed to be non-bias, nonpartisan. And for being honest and making an assessment like that, he gets fired, which is ridiculous to me. It was nice to see honesty in the House of Commons for once. The ostriches being murdered. There was a billionaire from the U.S. that was assisting with the legal fees and trying to assist the farm, and I'm hoping that they pursue legal action. I know it's expensive, it's a lot of time, and they've already gone through a lot of trauma. And, a year of this ordeal, and then ultimately having the appeal dropped by the Superior Court leftists. And I believe it's 6 of them that were elected by Justin Trudeau, another friggin' loser radical. And so I hope the CFIA gets investigated and the RCMP members that were involved, because that's not your job. It was so disgraceful. And there's already a lack of trust in government. If people looked at my interview with Pat King from September, I was saying it at the end when he asked me a question that I didn't know he was going to ask, but what can we do? And I was saying that the government needs to regain the trust of its citizens, because they have failed at every single level, at the highest levels of government, showing that they're willing to work against its people, like the Gestapo, like the Red Army, like the secret police, et cetera, et cetera. In other communist regimes, when government forcibly went against the people, unlawfully, illegally taking away their freedoms, their property, their animals, this and that, removing them out of like off their land. The Holodomor, like I'm going to get into it with my Grok conversations by talking about Stalin and Lenin and Mao Zedong and other communist atheists, and just how much death compared to fascist, extremist, Nazi radicals. How many deaths there were incurred under certain regimes, and you'll see that's which is why I don't know why we don't talk more about communism and communist dictators in the education systems or during certain occasions. And so this is why I think that people think that there's more of a threat of far right radicalism when it's in fact far left communist radicalism. And we're building now. Oh my God, I'm all over the place. But in the last 24 hours, I don't know how true this is, but there's been media circulating that over 300,000 government employees in Canada will be trained, and even on firearms, in order to increase our military, our defense numbers. And so this has all the beginnings of the Stalin, Lenin, like these regimes. And then and then again, like lack of training, lack of proper certifications. In order to be an infantry officer, it took me such a long time. So the basic training is a few months long. The common army phase is a few months long. Phase 3 is a few months long. Phase 4 is a few months long, and then you get into battalion and you do a lot more training, especially pre-deployment training, etc. There's so much training and qualifications that go into being in the military, being law enforcement as well. It's not as long, um, or with as many like strategic planning or operational planning, within but they do at least a few months of training before you have to become a law enforcement officer. And then a lot of people do have their schooling. They take criminology, or they take oh my God, what's it called? But it's a law enforcement program where, like, basically your university or college degree is it's police foundations. That's what it is, police foundations. And uh and so and then the fitness aspect, all of this stuff. And we saw these we can see how, even with the Stanford prison experiments, when you have people that you give them a position, even if it's unearned, and they're unqualified for that position. The Stanford prison experiments, I've talked about this many times. Please search my videos for that, or look on Google. How easy it is to influence people to do things that are unlawful, that are illegal, that are harmful, that are torturous. And then even with the Milgram experiments, actually, how many people are willing to even murder people through electroshock with a wall barrier, so you don't see the harm that you're doing. Why? Because a guy with a white lab coat tells you to, says it's okay. Again, it's just terrifying, the extent of what people will do when they're indoctrinated or brainwashed. And yes, we absolutely saw that in World War I and World War II as well, especially at the end of World War II. And lest we forget. All right, so yeah, not a good idea for what we're doing. And let me see here. I'm just going to go into my Instagram posts.
You're telling me that India tops the charts for asylum claims in Canada, ahead of Haiti, Iran, Ukraine, Nigeria, war-torn countries? Really? India is actually the world's largest democracy. They're not under a dictatorship. They're not in the middle of a war. They're not collapsing like Venezuela, as an example. So why are more refugee claims coming from India than anywhere else in the world? Well, the answer to that is quite simple. The system is being gamed. Consultants are coaching students and temporary workers. In fact, they post about it on social media even. And when their visas expire, suddenly they're refugees. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, file identical copy and paste stories about persecution. It's not persecution, it's just paperwork to buy them more time. But you know what the real problem is? The fact that when tens of thousands of people are filing bogus claims and flood the system, real refugees, the ones actually fleeing dictatorships, gender-based violence, real wars, those all get stuck in the backlog. The biggest question here, though, is if they're bogus claims, why are they getting approved? And to be honest with you, most of them actually aren't approved. The majority do, in fact, get rejected. But the scam lies in here because the moment that you file that claim, you get years of work permits, healthcare, and benefits while your case crawls through the system. Winning asylum is not the point here. It's the prize of just filing for it in the first place. Nothing about this is anti-immigration. Everything about this is pro-truth, pro-Canada, and pro-real refugees. And if you can't tell the difference between that, you are not debating, you are gaslighting.
Yep. And what did I want to add to that? And so, yes, in the last 4 years alone, we've increased our population by over 4 million, I believe it is at this point, 4 million in over 4 years. And this is what we're tracking. And we're having housing crisis. we're like where we're having it where there's long wait lines in order to see medical staff, etc. And we're seeing a lot more violence, a lot more organized crime, a lot more grift. There's just so much. And again, I believe it's 97% of the population growth in Canada annually is through immigration. The remainder is through Canadians having babies. And this is alarming, and it's becoming more and more expensive to have children for the average Canadian, because again, we're getting like even middle class has become lower class, right? I think cost of living has gotten insane. And Carney was the finance advisor throughout COVID since 2020. And so for people to say that he's new to Parliament, even though he was working with the Bank of Canada as a governor for 8 years or however long it was, they worked directly with Parliament. So even when I was doing executive protection for the Bank of Canada, the governor and the SDG, they had plenty of meetings with the Prime Minister, with cabinet, with employees within Parliament. And so for people to say that he's new is such a joke. Like, he has enabled and supported the destruction of Canada, and especially with the immigration policies that got way too extreme in the last 5 years. I'm saying in the last 5 years it's become unsustainable. I'm not saying we don't need immigration, we do. And people that are fleeing oppression, actually fleeing war-torn countries, etc., of course, yes, bring them in. But it also needs to be people that are coming that where their culture and their religion is compatible in Canada. Okay, because we're also getting immigration from the friggin' Middle East, respectfully speaking, but people that are coming here, part of the Muslim Brotherhood, which Canadian government does not classify as a terrorist organization, despite the fact that where there are multiple Muslim countries that classify the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, and they get funding from terrorist organizations. Okay, and so in Canada, I don't know why we're not, but we're not, and I think we should be doing that. And anyways, I don't want to get too far in that because I do share some stats. And she didn't finish speaking, but and so yeah, we have backlogs, and we have people coming here because they're escaping criminality. We got people coming here from a culture where over 40% of marriages are under the age of 18, and in Canada, again, this is illegal stuff. And then we have people coming here and they have multiple wives who are claiming that their husbands aren't here, or that they're single mothers with children, and they're getting money, and they're doing it in the US as well. And I'm saying it's not everyone, but there are a lot of people, again, that are exploiting the system and lying in order to get a lot of money. And we've got such an increase in homelessness, homeless veterans, people that I've talked to personally, people that served as infantry officers and they're homeless, and people even immigrating here for a better life with multiple degrees, multiple languages spoken, and then again, just being lost in the system during COVID and becoming homeless. So we have people here that we actually need to help. The fentanyl drug crisis, all of this stuff, but we're not. And then we have the CFIA that approves mRNA inoculations for animals now, and for chemicals in the soil, and clone meats and all this other garbage, and they're totally okay with murdering ostriches. Like, just absolutely ridiculous to me. I know I'm circling back, but I just get so frustrated. I hope these people go to jail. I really do. That to me is such overreach, and that's stuff that was happening again in during the Bolshevik Revolution, during the Holodomor, when people within government, were going after innocent civilians. and taking their land and forcing them to farm for the military industrial complex, not for themselves. No, no, no. But we never learn from the past. No, we never learn from the past. It's always, the narrative is always about the far right. It's always about the Holocaust, but it's never about the Holodomor or about like none of that stuff. Which again, there was more death. So again, I'm not saying that the Holocaust and that it wasn't absolutely vile and disgusting, and and we need to implement measures in order to make sure this stuff doesn't happen again. But we also have to look again at Stalin and Lenin and Mao Zedong and others and see how that happened.
So you're telling me that India tops the charts for asylum claims in Canada ahead of Haiti, Iran, Ukraine, Nigeria, war-torn countries? Really? India is actually the world's largest democracy. They're not under a dictatorship. They're not in the middle of a war. They're not collapsing like Venezuela, as an example. So why are more refugee claims coming from India than anywhere else in the world? Well, the answer to that is quite simple. The system is being gamed. Consultants are coaching students in temporary...
Oh, I already played that. All right, let's see what else she has here.
Once you see it, you really can't unsee it. You know, I've been battling this question a lot lately. Why on earth is the media talking about the conservatives so much? Like, we literally just had an election, okay? The conservatives lost, the liberals won. Mark Carney is our prime minister. So why on earth are they talking about the leader of the opposition or even the opposition party more than the current governing party that has been governing our country for 10 plus years now? Like, what is there to talk about? Honestly, what is there to talk about? Our economy is in free fall. Our unemployment rates are super unacceptable, even if they might have mild margins of increase due to more part-time or government jobs being added to them. Our debt has exploded. Housing is an absolute disaster. Every single one of those things happened with liberals at the wheel, not conservatives. Yet somehow, the only thing they want you to be paying attention to right now is the Conservative Party, who hasn't led this country in over 10 years. But it makes perfect sense, because when you have to distract people away from the results because you can no longer defend them anymore, you just attack the opposition, right? That's called propaganda 101. The part about it that's really sad is that if voters started focusing on the people who are actually in charge, they might realize that life in Canada has gotten objectively worse in the last 10 years across every data set. The fact that they are bribing MPs to cross the floor so they can get a majority that nobody elected them for, and the Liberals openly begging for investment because it is not coming here naturally due to their policies. But the media, who knows this, by the way, doesn't want to lose their paycheck, so they're just going to manufacture some scandals and drama about people who aren't even in power. Because when Canadians start paying attention to, start criticizing those who are, it's game over for everybody. Don't fall for the distractions. Continue participating in democracy and questioning the government. That is your moral and legal obligation to do so. And stop focusing on the opposition. Focus on the people who are actually running the country.
Yeah.
Once you see...
Media is supposed to be non-biased. And CBC, it couldn't be more blatant. I just want to make sure if my mic's on. Okay, good. Couldn't be more blatant. And this is why, like, it's just like the lack of trust again with media is just through the roof, and it has been for years. And until again people get forced to resign and they start reporting the actual news and actual truth and actual facts, then ultimately when the Conservatives get in, if they ever do, they're going to be deplatformed. And rightfully so. And people should be going to freaking jail for this too. They're traitors to Canada. And I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's really not. Like, and what else did I want to say about that? Oh yeah, and so people are talking about Pierre. They're not happy with him. I understand that there are certain things that, like, where even I have called him out on and disagreed with him on, but there are many more things that I agree with him on. And I think that he's doing a really good job on and speaking about and addressing. And he has called out Carney multiple occasions. Carney is new to be on the floor, being called to task and being questioned like he is. Okay, he's used to being in a boardroom where everyone just listens because they have no friggin' choice. And so this is new to him. Pierre just became the leader of the Conservative Party. He just became. Okay, we've had multiple. We've had Scheer and oh god, we've had Andrew Scheer and my names are escaping me now. I can picture his face. Short hair, white, average height. God damn it! Anyways, whatever. That guy, and then Pierre, and he's only had one election as the leader of the Conservative Party, and people are already talking about possibly dropping him because Conservatives are not doing well in the polls. They were doing really well in the polls before Trudeau's fucking loser traitorous move to have the government prorogued in order to avoid a vote of non-confidence, etc., and then have it where there was an internal vote where Carney and Chrystia Freeland, both Bilderberg, deep state elitist types, really high up with WEF, and and they were the leader. They were the options, and again, disaster for Canada either way, and again, such a scam. And then with the media, just how they were rolling out like their state-funded propaganda because they wanted Carney to win because they knew that the Conservatives wanted to deplatform them because they even said it during debates. And so, and again, they're supposed to be non-biased, and they absolutely were, and it's disgusting. And then with the tariffs and with this fake feud that happened with Trump, which I think was possibly orchestrated, and the elbows up gimmick or motto, like that was out for a few months, in preparation for the elections. And so all pre-planned, and it they won because of that. Oh, it was just, but what do you do? Didn't share his assets. We're going to pay for it. And now he's close to a majority government because he's trying to get people on the Conservative side, either with blackmail or bribery or brainwashing or honeypots or whatever, to turn over. So what will a liberal majority government look like? And we have here Bill C2, C8, C9, and C63 on the table. Again, all of these policies. There's some good parts of these bills, but there's really bad parts, and so you don't want the bad parts to pass, unfortunately. So you have to, unfortunately, not vote on these bills.
A lot of people don't know what it will look like if the Liberals form a majority government. So let's just go over a couple things. Bill C2, Bill C8, and Bill C9, and Bill C63 are bills that they've already introduced that they will pass if they form a majority government. These bills will make it possible for them to send you to jail for anything that you say online that they consider to be hate. There's no objective definition of hate. It's just anything that you say that they decide is hateful, you can go to jail for it. They'll also make more than $10,000 cash illegal. So if you have a cash job that you do in the summer or anything like that, you will now be a criminal if you make more than $10,000 cash. They can change that as well. They can change that number to where eventually any amount of cash can be illegal, and it would be just a digital currency. Why does that matter to them? Because they also have a bill to take control of all of your services. So your phone, your internet, your online banking, they will freeze those at any time if they think it is necessary. They don't need a court order. They don't need evidence or proof. These bills provide them with the authority to do that at any given time. They also have said already clearly that they will not have any mandatory sentences for anyone possessing child pornography. That is, stop and think about that for a second. There's no clear, immediate deterrent for anyone that would want to possess that now. There is no mandatory minimum sentence for someone possessing child pornography. And finally, a liberal minister has already called the Bible hate speech. This has already been said by a liberal minister. It's very possible that we could see the Bible being considered as hate speech, and possession of the Bible could result in you being someone possessing hate speech.
And that's what Stalin and Lenin did when they came into power as communist atheists. They targeted clergy, they targeted churches, and so thousands and thousands of Christians were the clergy first, and then they started attacking like the actual citizens, but they were the first ones that were targeted. We're doing that in Canada. This is why I've been sounding the alarms for years. I'm like, this is not good. Like when there are Christian churches within Canada, and the numbers range from like about 100 to over 300, maybe even more, Christian churches that have been vandalized, attacked, graffitied, etc. And Christians, even a guy during the Turning Point USA event just a couple of days ago, he was beat until he was bloodied, and I'm going to show that video, wearing a Christian cross, talking about Christ as King. Like the Constitution was created for Christians. And I've shared that video where Charlie Kirk says it best, and maybe I'll try to find it again with his explanation, and how even Deuteronomy is quoted 4 times, even within the Constitution. And the Bible is quoted more than any other literature in order to even create the Constitution. And so it's based on God. The final paragraph reads that as a prayer. And so, like, once you remove God and Christianity specifically from society and from the culture, etc., this is where it's incompatible with other societies. And so I'm going on this tangent, but I'm gonna keep playing this and then see if I can find it.
All of these things are possible. Most of these things are already outlined in Bill C2, Bill C8, Bill C9, and Bill C63. What can you do about it? Talk about it. Make a quick video, just talk about it. Give your honest take. It's pretty frightening stuff. I don't think anyone in this country wants to live in a police state. Even the people that are supporting the liberals, I think, have good intentions. Maybe some of them don't, but no one wants that for this country.
Let's see what I have saved. Yeah, here we go.
Our country was founded on common law because the Declaration only refers to God 4 times in the Constitution. It doesn't refer to God at all. And it only articulates the structure of government.
So first of all, remember that we were a collection of states and colonies, and you need to read the state constitutions before anything else. 9 out of 13 of the original states required you to be a Bible-believing Christian to serve in government at the time of the founding. 13 out of 13 required a declaration of faith. 9 out of 13 required you to be a Protestant, except Maryland, which was Catholic, which still required a declaration of faith. Almost every single one of the original state constitutions, Pennsylvania included, they had, I profess Lord and Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior in the original state constitution. You remember, we're a collection of states before that. Secondly, 55 out of 56 of the original signers of the Declaration were Bible-believing, church-attending Christians. So common law is inherited from Blackstone, who was Christian. Common law is an outgrowth of the scriptures. So let's go to 3 principles of common law: presumption of innocence, due process, and jury of your peers. All 3 are biblical principles, wrapped into the ultimate biblical principle that you shall not favor justice if you are rich or poor, which is in Leviticus 19, right before the most famous part of Leviticus 19, which is that you should love your neighbor as yourself. But before that is that in the administration of justice, you shall not favor the rich or the poor, which is the idea of blind justice. We get that in the West, which is incorporated also in the New Testament ideal. Neither slave nor Greek nor Jew, you're all one in Jesus Christ, which we get the idea of human equality. These are all biblical ideas. They're not Enlightenment ideas, which is they kind of get conflated at the time. But more importantly than that, they say that God was only mentioned 4 times in the Declaration of Independence. Well, that's a big deal. Okay. Laws of nature and nature's God. The last paragraph of the Declaration reads as a prayer. It says, we appeal to the supreme judge of the universe. Who's the judge of the universe? Jesus Christ. It says in Revelation that Jesus will judge the earth on his throne. So in the Declaration, they were praying to Christ our Lord as a prayer very specifically. Thirdly, as I said on stage yesterday, Deuteronomy was by far the most quoted book, religious or non-religious, in the time of the founding when they were putting together the Constitution. More than John Locke, more than Montesquieu, more than Blackstone. So the book of Deuteronomy, which talked about laws, customs, traditions, it was Moses' farewell address as he's about to say goodbye, say, hey, good luck in Canaan, guys. Here's how you should set up your form of government. But finally, and most importantly, let's look at actually what the founders said. John Adams famously said the Constitution was only written for a moral and religious people. It was wholly inadequate for the people of any other. The body politic of America was so Christian and was so Protestant that our form and structure of government was built for the people that believed in Christ our Lord. One of the reasons we're living through a constitutional crisis is that we no longer have a Christian nation, but we have a Christian form of government, and they're incompatible. So you cannot have liberty if you do not have a Christian population.
Our country was founded on common law.
So well said. So well said. What a loss. Such a smart man. Yeah. It's going. I'm going to be talking about Daniel Smith in a second, but Pierre Poilievre, give him a shot. He even wanted to debate. Sorry, I'm trying to look at. He even wants to debate Mark Carney. He's called him out for a debate in the last 24, 48 hours. He's doing his friggin' best, and he's been really screwed over. And yeah, No one's ever going to be perfect in politics. And so I voted conservative this past election. In 2021, I voted PPC because none of the parties were supporting the end of lockdowns. They were like, even the conservatives at that point, they were still pushing for people to be inoculated. They had removed people from cabinet for not being inoculated. When they were attending speaking events, they were in areas where, you know, you had to follow like the lockdown, the protocols with the masking and the barcodes, and you had to be vaccinated, etc. And so I didn't vote for that. And then with the and then not addressing not addressing the immigration issue that we were already starting to see in 2021. And there was a few other things, but he has since addressed those issues. And but Doug Ford should step down, just by virtue of that advertisement alone, that he didn't take down what he should have, that he let air during the friggin' baseball game. Like he should absolutely be forced to resign. And so left and right, you know, talk about the left a lot. And so there are negative fake conservatives out there too. And Doug Ford is a traitor to Canada and racketeering or whatever. But his decal business during COVID profited so much, and he still hasn't been investigated for that. Oh, you probably need the sound on. I'll refresh. And so, yeah, and I like Danielle Smith, by the way. And do I think that she would be a better option to be the leader of the Conservative Party? No, I don't. Not at this point. I would love it for her to be prime minister one day, but she doesn't have the experience yet, and she is good, but I think she's really good for Alberta, and then maybe after Pierre Poilievre has a chance at it, and she could go under his wing a little bit. Again, she's a very talented, educated, amazing human being, but I'm just saying, like, she doesn't have the experience yet, and and she has her hands full with Alberta. And so, but anyway, who knows?
Do you want to hear the answer? Ottawa overtaxing us. I mentioned that at the beginning of the evening, that our program costs are 70% of all tax dollars. We only collect 40%. Ottawa collects 60%, and then they use political means to transfer it. Alberta, year after year, has $20 to $25 billion that is siphoned out of our system to go to Ottawa so that it can be spent mostly in Quebec, but also in other places that vote Liberal. We have been watching this for years. $600 billion in the last 40 or 50 years that have been taken out of this province. You don't think we might be able to do a little bit more on social spending if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? You don't think we'd be able to cut taxes a bit if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? It is $5,000 per Albertan that every single year gets transferred out of this province for political reasons so that the Liberals can continue to spend it in places that vote Liberal. That is what is happening in the province and in the country. About tonight is Ottawa over.
And that's a fact. And so again, you have provinces that know they're getting a lot of money with the Liberals, but they're getting conservative money. They're getting conservatives' money. They're getting, like Alberta, like a conservative. They're getting their money. And they're not even seeing the hypocrisy in that, right? Like, they just want this gravy train. I was born and raised in Quebec. And so I will admit that they get a lot of money from the West, a lot of money from conservative provinces. And it's a slap in the face, right? It's not like all of these supports will go away if the conservatives get friggin' power. Like, we need them. We need to have the Liberals not be in power. Like, they have destroyed our country. Like, this is so obvious to me and so many others. But a lot of it would be cut because provinces need to start creating their own wealth and their own growth. And Quebec has so many different ways and in areas where it could expand with nuclear energy, with hydroelectric energy, with mining, with fishing plants, so many different things that they could do and places they could invest in rural areas. And they don't, and they haven't, and it's gotten worse in rural areas where there's more plants shutting down, there's less work. So people within rural areas in Quebec, they're having to be forced to go outside of the province, and they're working in Alberta and other areas like that, working in the oil fields or on the rigs or the drilling at Fort Mac, etc. Or they're moving to the U.S. Okay, I'll do one more video and then I'm going to get into my Grok chats. And this is just an interesting video.
Changes everything that we thought we knew or were told by the education system and the establishment. And if they're hiding this changes everything.
In 2016, a group of independent researchers gathered at a salt flat in Bolivia, one of the flattest surfaces on Earth. Their mission to test something that's rarely questioned, but absolutely foundational. How far can you see before the curve takes it all away? According to the globe model, Earth curves at 8 inches per mile squared. That means objects should disappear from view beyond a certain distance, hidden by the curve. So they set out with lasers, high zoom cameras, and infrared tech. Their goal wasn't to prove anything, just to measure how far light and sight could travel in open, uninterrupted space. They placed a laser just 3 feet above the surface. According to globe math, it should have been invisible beyond 6 miles. But the beam remained visible at 10 miles, then 15, then over 20. No curvature blocked it. Next, they filmed distant buildings, boats, and islands across large lakes, sometimes 30, 40, even 100 miles away. According to the globe model, these objects should have been hidden behind hundreds of feet of Earth's curve. But the entire structure, base to top, remained visible. No atmospheric bending, no magic refraction, just direct line of sight. And then came the most damning test of all. 2 flags were set up miles apart on a frozen lake, with a third person holding a camera at the same height in the middle. If Earth was curved, the middle flag should have appeared higher due to the curve. But all 3 lined up perfectly, dead flat.
Okay, so forget the debate for a second. Just know that this happened. So what do we do with this information? It's flat. They proved it. There should be this curvature that there's not. Now here,
I've shown so many experiments where this has been done, laser tests, and even November, I don't know if he's on or not watching, but he even was part of one a few years ago, several years ago now, I guess, and showed that we see much further than the 8 inches per mile squared, which is what the globe earthers give us as the Earth curve calculator.
here's the question. Is it that there's like less curvature than they say, but it really is curved, but like not as curvy as...
But then it would have to be bigger, right? So then it would, and they have not updated the model yet, right? And apparently we've seen Earth and we've done all the measurements from the moon and from space, etc., for friggin' decades. And so it would be impossible for it to be of a diameter of a little under 8,000 miles, a radius of just under 4,000 miles, and a circumference of approximately 24,901 miles, or 40,000 kilometers. Their calculations would have to make it where it was significantly bigger. And how do they explain that they came up with how do they explain the measurements?
We were told, or is it like there's no curve, it's completely flat? If that's the case, what the Sam Dam are we on right now if it's not a freaking marble flying around in space? That is the question you want to be asking. And if it is,
we have not seen ever any type of like physical geographic horizon or downward slope, right? So even with water, when it freezes over, we've never seen any form of a slope or a curve within the frozen water. It always freezes level, right? So some kind of a contained environment as well for the water, and this being itself as well, some kind of a contained cosmos, contained via toroidal fields, or the radiation belt, or the belts, or Van Allen belts, whatever you want to friggin' call them. And so I know this sounds crazy, but it's science. Like, we're sharing facts.
Flat, why would they hide it from us? I can tell you the going theory is it's easier to convince people that we're from a evolution than there was an explosion called the Big Bang and we grew from a fish and we turned into humans over billions and billions of years. It's easier to convince people that it's a random chance if we're this ball in space and there's a trillion odds that you even become a planet in the first place. Whereas if you're on it, something that's flat and it's not in space and it changes everything, it's more easy to believe and understand that we were created, not the result of a random chance. So that's the going theory with why they would hide this from us. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and follow for more. If this is true.
Yeah, that was interesting. All right. Grok. I have so many tabs up. All right, I'm just starting from basically the top. I'm going to skim through a lot of conversations that I've had with Grok over the last few days. And, oh my goodness. So, before Blaze News reported the pipe bomb, former Capitol Police cop, law enforcement officer, that woman, yeah, I have been saying now for years, again, even at the time of January 6th, I was saying was staged and planned, and with rehearsals being done and organization being done, and even Turning Point USA had booked as well speaking engagements for the 5th and 6th, but they were approached by someone, I believe, that was part of the government, in order to have these events during that time. And so again, like the left and right people, again, that are organizing what people think to be like grassroots, oftentimes are still unfortunately being there are people that are intentionally planted in order to make it look like they're the ones that are organizing it or planning it, or that it's their idea when it's not. And or they hijack the events that they're planning, thinking that it's grassroots and genuine and a good cause and blah blah blah. They hijack it because they want it to turn out a certain way and not be peaceful. And so anyway, so I wasn't surprised, because I said that like there was a lot of people within the government that were there that day, and I have called out many of them. And I also said, though, that there were crisis actors that were wearing law enforcement uniforms that I do not think at all were real police officers, that were part of, again, the crisis actors and role players that were there on the other side of the Capitol, doing their own thing. And so yeah, so Capitol Police planted the bomb, and then several months later, she ended up not working with them anymore. I don't know if she resigned or was terminated or whatever, or if she was only there to do that role and then she wasn't needed anymore. But anyway. Okay, so magnetic elements, obviously, this I'm going somewhere with this. Iron, cobalt, nickel, gadolinium, I mean, and dysprosium. There's others, and elements that can be magnetized. Okay, so sometimes Grok always adds in information from previous conversations that have absolutely nothing to do with my new questions, and it get why are you bringing Aries in June 21st into this conversation when I had a conversation about this stuff like literally over a week ago? Anyway, okay, so diamagnetic example: a strong neodymium magnet will slightly push away a piece of lead, opposite of iron, which is attracted. So there's a slight repelling of lead. Superconducting lead used in early Josephson junctions and squids, superconducting quantum interface devices for ultra-sensitive magnetic field detection. Sure. So this is where the connection with lead and Saturn comes into play, even though Saturn is a luminary, in my humble opinion, and possibly furthest away from the sun, and connected with lead being like the also connected to the root chakra, and so at the very bottom of the chakra systems, or the start of the chakras or energy systems, where where you have to like climb Jacob's ladder or access your higher levels of consciousness and become illuminated. But anyways, you start with lead and then you end with gold. That's why there's so many different civilizations that talk about transmuting lead to gold. Okay, so lead has repulsion properties. So lead is a poor electrical conductor and diamagnetic, weakly repelled by magnets, not useful for making magnets, but essential in lead acid batteries, cable shielding, and superconducting devices, as cryogenic temperatures. See, again, it's bringing in information I don't even care. Okay, so then I wanted to clarify. So lead repels magnets, yes, but very weakly. Lead is diamagnetic, meaning it creates a magnetic field in the opposite direction when exposed to an external magnet, resulting in weak repulsion. So attracts iron, ferromagnetic, strong neodymium magnets. Same magnet near lead, slightly pushes away, diamagnetic repulsion. So is gold electromagnetic? I just wanted to ask questions just to share. So Grok says yes, but in a very specific way. Gold is diamagnetic like lead, meaning it weakly repels magnetic fields and is an excellent electrical conductor. So strong neodymium magnet near gold, slight push away, too weak to feel. Gold leaf and strong field, levitation possible, like bismuth. Interesting, levitation. Gold leaf in a strong field. Okay, so conductivity. So it's an excellent conductor, carries electricity with almost no loss. Okay, so then it's getting into dipoles, South Pole, North Pole. Okay, so let's see what. Okay, so we call it diamagnetic, and why magnets don't have positive or negative attraction like electricity is what they're alleging. But I've been looking into monopoles and quantum particles, etc., that can act as monopoles. Okay, so bismuth, most diamagnetic, can levitate above strong magnets. Okay, can we make magnets positive or negative like electricity? No, magnets are not like electricity. It's a different form of energy. So positive and negative charges exist separately. Magnetism is alleging no positive or negative poles exist alone. But people have alleged there's strong arguments with the possibility of monopoles existing. But anyway, charges can be isolated. And then with magnetism, poles always come in pairs, north-south. Like charges repel, like poles repel. Opposite charges attract, opposite poles attract. So again, there's a lot of similarities, except for the North Pole, South Pole, alleged to be necessary in order to have a magnet. Okay. Again, I'm just trying to get out of the useless information Grok is giving me that have nothing to do with the questions I'm asking. Okay, so I say, but monopoles exist. I just want to see what Grok says with that. So you're right to question this. Magnetic monopoles are a fascinating topic. And while they are predicted by theory, they have not been observed in nature. Let's break it down clearly based on the latest physics as of the 28th of October, 2025. So yeah, this was a while ago. Okay, so a magnetic monopole would be a particle with only one magnetic pole, north or south, unlike ordinary magnets with both. It would carry magnetic charge, analogous to electric charge. Why predicted? Symmetry. Maxwell's equations for electromagnetism are symmetric if monopoles exist. Electric and magnetic forces would be mirrors of each other. Without them, magnetism seems incomplete. Quantum theories. Paul Dirac, 1931, showed monopoles would explain why electric charge is quantized multiple of E, the electron charge rather. Grand unified theories. I'm just gonna make sure my mute's not on. That would suck. No, it's not. All right, good. Grand unified theories and string theory predict them as relics of the Big Bang with masses of this trillions of times heavier than protons. This is just from Grok, and it could be elementary particles, skyrmions in materials, or emergent quasi-particles in condensed matter. So particle accelerators, CERN's LHC and Fermilab have hunted for them since the 1970s. No detections. Recent 2024 LHC beam pipe tests upper limit on production rates. I've shared videos on how people can possibly test for monopoles. Actually, that might have been my last video. So just fast forward to it. Materials, emergent monopoles, virtual, have been seen in spin ice crystals, 2009, and frustrated magnets, 2024. But these are not true isolated monopoles, just quasi-particles. Okay, so rare and heavy. If they exist, they're too massive for accelerators and too scarce in the universe, the cosmos, but possibly too massive for accelerators. But I believe they've come up with, again, more ways to measure that, and it has to do with multiple different lenses. So anyway, chronology, protection. Stephen Hawking's conjecture suggests the universe prevents them to avoid paradoxes, closed time-like curves. Again, this makes, anyway. Okay, so I asked about Dirac's monopole quantization, which is the most elegant arguments in physics for why magnet monopoles, if they exist, would quantize electric charge, and why charge comes in discrete units. This ties directly into, again, it's about your intelligently designed cosmos. Okay, so. Okay, so Dirac showed if even one magnetic monopole exists anywhere in the universe, electric charge must be quantized. Imagine an electron wave moving around a closed loop in space. In quantum mechanics, the electron's wave function picks up a phase shift, sure. For the wave to interfere consistently, no paradox, the phase must be the same, no matter which path you take. Phase must be a multiple of 2 pi. Let's see here. So one monopole anywhere forces all electric charge to be integer multiples of a base unit. Interesting. So this explains why charge comes in discrete packets and why monopoles, if real, are cosmic game changers. The absence of monopoles preserves perfect magnetic duality. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so quasi-particles. Again, I just wanted to see what Grok had to say for these videos. A profound concept in condensed matter physics that bridges quantum mechanics, emergent phenomena, and even monopole-like behavior. This fits beautiful. Again, it talks about this friggin', it always goes into this. Let's break it down. See, I always talk about electrons in a vacuum, but this cosmos is not a vacuum. Okay, so they emerge from cooperative motion of many electrons, atoms, or spins, like a ripple in a pond, acting like a single thing, which I find interesting, because particles create waves. Electron, quasi-particles, and metal. Polariton, light, and lattice vibration, and lattice vibration, that's interesting, photon light. And magnetic monopole and spin ice. Key examples of quasi-particles: phonon, crystal lattice, sound particle, discovered in 1932, but again, sound's been around since the creation of the cosmos. A magnon, ferromagnet spin wave, polaron, electron and lattice distortion, dressed electron, exciton, semiconductor, bound electron, hole pair, plasmon, free electrons in metal, light-like oscillation, skyrmion, magnetic texture, topological knot, Majorana fermion, superconductor edge, its own antiparticle. So these are emergent magnetic monopoles, quasi-particles. They move independently, obey Coulomb's law, and carry fractional charge. No real monopoles, but perfect analogs in a solid, sure. Let's see here. Yeah, so I was asking about spin ice causing monopoles. And so gave me a few videos, but as soon as I tried to open them up, they were already removed, or I wasn't able to. So magnetic monopoles and artificial spin ice, nature physics video on YouTube. Okay, so 2010 Nature Physics paper on artificial spin ice, where researchers visualize monopole defects forming in a Kagome, I don't know if that's how you say it, lattice using a magnetic force microscopy. So a single spin flip in the lattice violates the 2 in, 2 out rule, creating a pair of monopoles, one north, one south. The monopoles move independently along the lattice, behaving like charged particles in a magnetic vacuum. Okay, so wanted to give me the video again. Again, it wouldn't work. Okay, I'm asking about lead ice. All right, skipping through this because I've already done a video on it. I was really looking into the constellations again. Okay, there's just so much to learn. I was looking into the Jesuits again and just their impact throughout the world and their connections to Rome and Vatican and military spies. Pleiades, Seven Sisters. My God, I was just going. Okay, and so this is just like another point that's important. So is there lead in the Earth's core crust? I already know the answer to this, but again, I wanted to show this and to make sure that I remember to ask. So yes, lead, Pb, is present in both Earth's crust and core, but in vastly different amounts. So lead connected to Saturn, root chakra, the lowest chakra, root. Saturn ruling over Aquarius and Capricorn, connected to hell, darkness. See, magnets have push and pull forces, and so I always wonder why when they talk about magnetism, when they see that there is a like a pushing force, right? You know, when you have like the different poles with magnets. I should have brought my magnets out, but like you can feel that resistance, that like either pushing away from each other, so like not being able to connect, and then the pulling together, the attraction versus repulsion. And so when you have an element or a particle where there's a repulsion, that could, to me, that could be what we classify as a monopole, because it has like a repulsion, not an attraction, like at the center of this Earth plane of inertia at the center, I believe to be a monopole, possibly magnet, who knows. And so, and I'm going to talk about Newton's law soon and his theories on gravity and anyway, and gravity having possibly monopole-like characteristics, right? So, but like an attraction towards the monopole at the center of the Earth, possibly. All right. Okay, so lead is radioactive decay, I'm asking. And another important thing to bring up here, so because even like the sun radiates energy. And so I think there's that connection with that as well. But anyway, so most lead on Earth is the end product of radioactive decay. Lead itself is stable, but 3 of its 4 main isotopes come from the decay of uranium and thorium. Uranium being used obviously for nuclear energy and nuclear weapons. Okay, how lead powers Earth's heat and magnetism through its radioactive parents. Lead itself is stable, but its formation from uranium and thorium decay releases massive energy that heats Earth's interior and drives the magnetic field. Here's the step-by-step mechanism. Again, this is just from Grok. Again, I have to multiply. Again, this is going to be constant research because there's so many conflicting reports that come from AI platforms. So then it talks about Earth's heat budget, 2025 data. Okay, so 42% of Earth's heat, uranium, thorium decay, lead's parents. So uranium, U-238 decay, 20%. Thorium, 20%. Uranium-235 decay, approximately 2%. K, I think it's potassium, 40 decay, 48%. Just 1 second here. Just want to make sure I'm not. Yeah, it is potassium. Okay, I was right. I just want to make sure. Again, slow morning. All right. Interesting. Sometimes I just read over things that I don't find important to like what I'm focusing on, and for this it was lead. Okay. Okay, is natural lead from magma? Yes, natural lead in Earth's crust is concentrated and deposited by magnetic processes, but it originates from radioactive decay, uranium, thorium, over billions of years. Lead. Uranium, thorium into lead over billions of years. And again, they say billions of years. We can't test that. We're not able to measure it accurately, predict billions of years. Come on. Anyway, because carbon dating as well, it like even beyond, I think 25,000 years, it's not accurate. Okay. So type how lead forms, hydrothermal veins, magma heats water, dissolves lead, deposits and cracks, magma cools, crystallizes, copper, zirconium. Skarn deposits, magma reacts with limestone and lead minerals. So then I'm asking, do magnets emit radiation? So no. So no is what Grok is saying. Ordinary magnets do not emit radiation. They produce a static magnetic field, which is not radiation. Only changing magnetic fields, example in motors, MRI, can induce electromagnetic radiation, or what I would call magnetic radiation. Because we're talking about static instead of moving magnets. Okay, so spinning magnet, changing field, radio waves, MRI machines, switching gradients, RF pulse, that's radio frequency, pulses. So motion or current causes it. Yeah, when magnets do emit radiation. Yeah, so radiation only from movement. So that's why the sun, like as it moves, it radiates. Anyway. I was looking back into the luminaries in connection with the number 7. Man, just scrolling through. Okay, here we go. Okay, was Stalin a democratic socialist atheist who led protests against the rich and powerful? That was just a question I had. So Joseph Stalin, 1878 to 1953, was indeed an atheist and was deeply involved in protests against the rich and powerful during his early years as a revolutionary. However, he was not a democratic socialist, but he was part of the party, and so I'll get to that. I'm only saying this because there are people that allege that they're not communists, they're not socialists, they're democratic socialists, which is different. No, it's not. No, it's not. And this always leads to socialist communism, and I'll explain why. But anyway, and so he was a Leninist rather, who championed authoritarian socialism or communist dictator. And his ideology evolved into Stalinism, a form of totalitarianism that diverged sharply from democratic principles, which they always do. And if there's no buy-in by everyone in the world, okay, to adopt a communist or socialist regime, it will never work either. And you always need to have government intervention, large scale, to go after people that are part of religious groups, okay, because they don't exist in your model. Okay, and people that are not willing to, again, abide by, like, oh my, it's just a disaster. But anyway, okay, so atheist, yes, Stalin was raised in the Georgian Orthodox Church, but rejected religion early in his life, embracing militant atheism as a core tenet of Marxism-Leninism. He viewed religion as the opiate of the masses, echoing Karl Marx, and promoted state atheism in the Soviet Union, closing churches, persecuting clergy, and enforcing anti-religious education. Evidence. During his rule, the Soviet state conducted the League of Militant Atheists campaign, 1925 to 1941. Wow. Just after World War I and just the start of World War II. Interesting. Destroying thousands of churches and executing or imprisoning religious leaders. Christians. Stalin's writings, such as his 1927 pamphlet on dialectical and historical materialism, explicitly denounced religious beliefs as counter-revolutionary. Okay, so this is this is completely against Canadian culture, our charter. It's against the Constitution. And so you'd have to dismantle that, which people are doing or trying to do, especially in Canada, with these bills and the attacks on, and this is a silent war too, by the way. That's why it's never talked about as wars, but it was wars against your own people, and then trying to expand outwards to get more resources and control from neighboring regions. So anyway, led protests against the rich and powerful. Yes, in his early years as a young revolutionary in the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. Okay, so no, he wasn't a social democrat. It's literally in the name. So he organized strikes and demonstrations against Tsarist oppression, factory owners, and the wealthy elite. For example, in 1901, 1902, he helped plan the May Day demonstration in Tiflis, now Tbilisi, where 3,000 workers clashed with authorities demanding better wages and rights of the poor. In 1905, during the Russian Revolution, he led protests in Baku against oil magnates and the Tsarist regime, or magnates, advocating for workers' control and land redistribution. These actions were anti-capitalist, targeting the rich and powerful as exploiters, but they were part of a broader Marxist push for proletarian revolution, not peaceful reform. So yeah, of course, the people, like the average person, that not part of the higher class people that were, bringing in a lot of the wealth and industry into the countries, targeted first, and that is what it's happening in Canada, and I just can't believe it. I can't believe you voted for more of that to come. Okay, so democratic socialism advocates for socialism achieved through democratic means. Sound familiar? Example, elections, reforms, labor rights, and social welfare without authoritarianism, but it always leads to it. It always leads to it. Stalin rejected this entirely. He was a Bolshevik who believed in revolutionary vanguardism and socialism in one country. And that's not even entirely true because he expanded outwards. Anyway, or they did. Prioritizing rapid industrialization, forced collectivization. So rapid industrialization. So we're seeing like a push, but in the wrong sectors here in Canada, like with the tech industry and AI, things like that, instead of oil, mining, agriculture, fishing industries, energy like nuclear and hydroelectric, etc. No, we're not going to do any of that stuff. And so rapid industrialization, forced collectivization, there's more control There's more government. It has become so bloated, especially in the last 5 years. And one party rule over democratic processes. And it's been over 10 years now that the liberals, their radical leftists, have been in charge. So evidence Stalin's policies, like the 5-year plans, the 1928 onward plan, involved purges, gulags, and state terror, killing millions. Example, the Holodomor famine, 1932-33, which claimed 3 to 5 million lives, mostly Christian Ukrainian, Eastern European, that were part of the USSR, which collapsed in 91, only in 91. So anyways, he labeled non-Bolshevik socialists social fascists, called them fascists. Does that sound familiar? People are called fascists. Charlie Kirk was a fascist. I'm apparently a fascist. Anyone that's a libertarian, even center libertarian, not left or right, but right in the friggin' middle, are called fascists. It's a fucking joke. Sorry for swearing. Or people that vote conservative, that were called fascists, racists. Again, this is, again, propaganda by state-funded media news, who are biased. And anyway, yeah, so fascists. People are anti-fascists. Anyway, suppress them. So his regime was totalitarian, not democratic. Yeah, and so he was a totalitarian, atheist communist. Early Stalin, pre-1924, aligned with Lenin's radicalism, not democratic socialism, like the Mensheviks, whom he opposed. Claims of him as a democratic socialist stem from misinformation. They're lying here. It stems from the fact that he's part of the party that was called the Social fucking Democrats, or Democratic Socialists. He was literally part of the party. Stalin rose to the Bolshevik ranks, becoming general secretary in 1922 and dictator by 1929. His socialism in one country doctrine prioritized Soviet power over global international revolution, leading to purges 1936 to 38, approximately 700,000 deaths and famines, and even more than that. While he started as a revolutionary protesting inequality, his regime created new elites and suppressed dissent, far from democratic ideals. Look at these censorship bills under Carney that they're trying to push for a majority government. Like it's the same playbook with the carbon tax. Again, this has been targeting more people within rural areas, people that are part of the farming industry, oil industry. Yeah. So then I was just bringing that up. So you've raised an interesting point. The Russian Social Democratic Labor Party includes democratic and socialist in its name, and Joseph Stalin was a key figure within it. Just like Adolf Hitler, he lied as well, like talking about the social injustices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then ended up being a fascist dictator. Whereas Stalin and Lenin, these guys were communist dictators. You got fascist, Nazi on the far right. You've got communist, socialist on the far left. Neither of these are good. So when I say that, like, people like to brag about being a socialist or a communist, like it like actually like it's I still can't believe people actually say that out loud. Clearly they don't know history, and these are the ones that the hypocrisy to, like, talk about it, like they're condemning the Nazis, like, as everyone should be doing, and fascists, as everyone should be doing. But they don't see the irony in the fact that there's like they as well have dictators and totalitarians that have committed even more extreme actions against its people than the people on the far right. Unfortunately, it's just a fact when you tally it up. And I just can't believe people vote and try to argue for it. And I'll reiterate, the entire world would have to be on board, and they will never be. They will never be. You're not going to remove religion from the entire world. Like, that's just point number one. And just from there, it's already a full stop. Like, you're never going to remove religion or people's belief in God. Everyone in the world's belief in God. You're never going to remove that from society, like across the world. And so it's never going to work. No matter how much you try to force it and impose, get people within government to try to force it on people like you do, okay, which is also anti-communist, but you do it anyways. And anyway, yeah. After 1917, as leader, he became part of a new elite, suppressing dissent and amassing power far from his protest roots. And same thing with Carney. He has so many shares and stocks in companies, over 91% within the U.S. alone, and only a couple of companies, Canadian companies, and he wants to be a billionaire. He's already a millionaire, and so that's not very socialist, communist, now is it? And I think that republics are better than democracies anyways. People talk about idiot democracies. It is a thing. Yeah, so Shani Kirkhoff, she was the pipe bomb placer, possibly. Anyway. Okay, so do magnets in motion emit radiation? I'm going to go on all these tangents, even on Grok. So yes, magnets in motion can emit radiation, but only under specific conditions where the magnet field changes. The type and amount of radiation depend on how the magnet moves and its interaction with electric fields or other materials. Okay, so simply moving a magnet, example, sliding it, without changing its field strength or orientation, it does not emit radiation. Okay, so when a magnet's motion alters its magnetic field, rotation, oscillation, or interaction with conductors, it can generate electromagnetic radiation via Faraday's law and Maxwell's equations. Sure, for the most part. But, yeah. Well, I'm going to ask more questions about radiation, but I want to get through some... Oh, yeah. So then I was asking, okay, well, Earth is spinning, apparently. I don't think it is. I think it's stationary. Like, so because it has a magnetic core or whatever, like, does it emit a magnetic field? Oh, not a strong one. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe the sun emits radiation because it's moving. I don't know. And there's some kind of like magnetic component to it, or some kind of a great light, possibly some kind of like plasma, ionized gas, or anyway. Oh yeah, and Grok gets things wrong as well. And so when I first asked about Shani Kirkhoff, Grok said no, that it's not true. There's no proof. And then a few days later, I called it out on it. I'm like, you said a few days ago, you told me that it wasn't true. Okay, so I thought you said the other day that she wasn't. Yes, Shani Ray Kirkhoff was indeed a former U.S. Capitol Police officer. She served from 2018 to mid-2021, approximately 4.5 years in the Department's Civil Disturbance Unit. Okay, so, but yeah, I said that. I thought you said something the other day. She wasn't. Oh yeah, and then it was like saying again that there's no information. Then I gave all the information and then said, you're right to call this out. Thank you for pointing it out. Upon double checking with the latest available information as of November 9th, 2025, I realized my earlier response was incomplete and did not fully reflect the recent investigative reporting on Shani Kirkhoff. I apologize for this oversight. I based my initial answer on pre-November 2025 data, which treated the pipe bomb case as unsolved without naming Kirkhoff as a suspect. New reports from November 8, 2025 have brought forward a strong identification linking her to the pipe bombs, though it remains unconfirmed by official authorities like the FBI. Anyways, goes from there. All right. Yeah, Trotsky. The revolution succeeded due to military support, example, the Red Guards, and economic collapse and widespread discontent. So the Bolshevik Revolution, the revolution culminating on October 25th, 26th, Julian calendar, was led by the Bolsheviks by the Bolshevik faction of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, with key figures like Lenin, Leon Trotsky, and Joseph Stalin. It aimed to establish a proletarian state, overthrowing the Tsarist autocracy, ended February 1917, and the subsequent Kerensky government. The revolution succeeded due to military support, example Red Guards, economic collapse, and widespread discontent. See, I don't know why it brings up the Jesuits in this. Case of the Bolsheviks as militant atheists banned the Jesuits in 1923, confiscated their properties, and persecuted their members, with many arrested or executed during the Red Terror, 1918 to 1922. Post-revolution, Stalin's regime intensified anti-religious campaigns with the Jesuits, because again, it's bringing up the Jesuits because I talked a lot about it, but Christians among the targeted groups. 1923, after aiding famine victims, people were getting kicked out. My God. That's another thing too with people who are religious, especially with Christians. There's a lot of charity that is provided, not only like for the church to be maintained, but also so that they can provide assistance to families or people that are going through hard times, to have money available to where they can go to the church to either get clothes or to get toys for kids, because people give donations and again money. And then also I know a lot more people, unfortunately, and again, this is not to sound judgmental, but people on the left, Democrat or liberal people, and again, I hate to politicize this, but it's just, again, like stats are out there. They are more willing to give away other people's money than their own. Again, they're very close hold, and they absolutely benefit and monopolize on capitalism and being in Canada and the US and these first world countries. But they want taxpayers and the rich and people that work their asses off to get more money and more power, because some people are just like that. Some people just, they're in competition with themselves and they're overachievers. And these people are good for society. And so allow them to thrive, right? Don't stifle innovation and progress and technological advancement and scientific advancement because you are too lazy and you can't do this, and expect money in return from these same people that are working their asses off. But anyway, I'm going on all these tangents. But anyway, so they're so generous with other people's money, despite the fact that like even when they're not contributing at all to give that money to the government through taxes, etc., to give to, for example, other countries when we need it within our countries at this point, right? So generous with other people's money for different groups, and it's where conservatives are like rein it in more, right? And so it's like, no, this is other people's money. Okay, people that worked hard for this money, and so we have to be careful with this money and make sure that this is spent in better ways and more conservative ways. And that's just been the case where there's always like so much overspending with the liberal and democratic parties, and it's always, unfortunately, the Republicans and conservatives, and they get a lot of hate for this, but they're always the one that have to rein it in and start managing the friggin' budget because it doesn't balance itself. And then they're seen as the thrifty ones when they're actually the responsible ones. Largely, again, I'm saying especially in the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you can see it. And so people on the right, like people like that who are more religious, more conservative in their values and culture and the way they live their lives, they are more generous with giving money to charities and donations, especially within their own communities. And even when I was in Gaspé this summer, people from the church and people from other groups, like even for nursing homes, were asking people for money, and a lot of people were giving money, even if it's only a few dollars, because it's poorer areas. People will absolutely do that. And they're providing services. Let me see here. Okay, so I think Trotsky was Jewish. So, because for the Bolshevik Revolution, there were leaders that and again, I'm just sharing facts. This is not to target any specific religious group, because I'm not trying to, because I talk a lot about atheists and Christians and people that are part of Islam, and how there are people that that follow to the friggin' letter Sharia law, which I don't think is compatible with Christianity or Judaism. So anyways, I talk about these religions. So I'm just saying, so prominent figures within the Bolshevik Revolution that were Jewish, because people tried to blame it and say, oh, it was just the Jewish people that were responsible. But so Leon Trotsky, born Lev Bronstein, born 1879 to a Jewish family in Ukraine, a leading Bolshevik theorist and organizer of the Red Army. He joined the RSDLP in 1903 and was instrumental in the October coup. So yeah, he did have a significant role, absolutely did. But you can't discount the fact that we also, like, again, atheists, like the removal of God from the system of governance in regions where like that is the God of their religions, like that, again, like it's very important to look at. Lev Kamenev, Rosenfeld, and Grigory Zinoviev, Radomysky, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, so Jewish Bolshevik leader who supported Lenin but later opposed Stalin. Yakov Sverdlov, Jewish chairman of the All-Russian Central Executive Committee, a key administrative figure post-revolution, so that was post-revolution. And so note, these individuals were secular Marxists, not religious Jews. So again, atheists. So very important, was incidental to their ideology. Okay, so estimates suggest that 20 to 30% of Bolshevik leadership had Jewish ancestry, but again, it doesn't mean that they were practicing people of the religion. And so I'll actually get into this because I didn't ask questions on Grok about this, but we have the Star of David flag. This is a country flag, not a religious symbol. Okay, and so there are people like even Jeff from Stinky Cash. He's on YouTube, and anyway, really smart guy. But he, I forget where he was. Maybe it was Illinois. Wait, what? And he was speaking to the mayor and calling out the fact because Jaron Kushner is heavily involved within this area. But I think it's out of either 5 out of the 6 flags or 6 out of the 7 flags where he was speaking. It has the Israel flag, the country of Israel flag, and 1 American flag. So there's either 5 Israel flags and 1 American flag, or 6 Israeli flags and 1 American flag in America. And so why? And again, this has nothing to do with religion. I will say that again. And there are a lot of religious Jewish people that condemn people who are radical Zionists, or people who are, they have that maternal lineage from Israel. And so they're calling themselves Jews, but ethnic Jews, not religious Jews. And a lot of people within Israel are secular Jews now as well. And so removed God from their culture and from their leadership. Netanyahu is a criminal. Okay, so many Jews supported socialist movements. The Jewish Bund against Tsarist oppression, but the Bund opposed Bolshevism, favoring cultural autonomy over a centralized state. Okay, so Forged Protocols of the Elders of Zion. That was propaganda. Yeah, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, they had a lot to do with, and communist atheists had a lot to do with pre-World War I tensions, even. All right. So atheist communists killed more people than religious Nazis? ? Yes, based on historical estimates, atheist communist regimes, notably the Soviet Union under Stalin and the People's Republic of China under Mao Zedong, are responsible for a higher total death toll than the Nazi regime under Adolf Hitler, which was rooted in a distorted form of Christianity and pagan. No, he used Christians. He was an atheist. Made fun of Christians. He actually used people, hired people to go to religious institutions and have people confess to these military leaders or advisors and spies. And if people confessed, like they would give this information back to Adolf Hitler. Disgusting. So exploiting religious people. Okay, so anyway. So under Joseph Stalin, atheist communism, Marxist-Leninism, estimated deaths, alleging that 10.5 to 16 million from 1924 to 1953. There's other estimates in the upwards of over 60 million people. So again, Grok, don't take it at face value. even live. I have corrected Grok multiple times. It's just getting information from Google, which is also controlled. People's Republic of China under Mao Zedong. Atheist communism under Maoism, again, atheist. 15 to 55 million, the Great Leap Forward, 1958, 1962. Plus 1 to 2 million, the Cultural Revolution, 1966, 1976. So total of 16 to 57 million between 1949 and 1976. Okay, so this is where, with Nazi Germany, the numbers of people that were horrifically murdered, it ranges between a little over 1 million to 6 million. And this is coming from people who were impacted and Holocaust survivors and academics from Europe that have gone to these areas where these horrific camps were set up, and they did testing, chemical testing, and there were no traces of gas within these chambers, but there was one hut that was used, like a small hut that was used to disinfect certain utensils and tools and things like that, and that had a lot of there was a lot of gas remnants still within the walls and things like that. And then again, not seeing a lot of the burial sites or cemeteries or bones, etc. And so, but still horrific, still millions of people who were murdered and or who suffered under austere conditions in these camps when a lot of access routes were destroyed during the war. People had to move large amounts of people into other concentration camps where they could be provided with treatment and some form of food. But a lot of people died of disease, of famine, and of the cold. And then even post 1945, there were, I think it was, and I've done videos on this, but anywhere between 3 and 4 million people who were German or who were supporting the Nazis who were murdered, and in response to the atrocities that were committed, obviously, in World War II, and they were in concentration camps. Like I think it was at least hundreds of thousands were in concentration camps, and then died of starvation and disease and illness, and then a lot were hanged and executed again because of their crimes against humanity, and a lot of people fled back to Germany as well. So like a mass migration back to Germany immediately post World War II, and so. And underreporting the numbers of the communist deaths, unfortunately, and overreporting the deaths, which again really annoys me about Google, because like facts matter. Okay, so oh yeah, universal basic income I think is coming. Might have just been approved. I hear more people complaining about it, but I'm like, I've been warning people now for months about that, and that's and I threw that in the Grok, like the bill they were trying to push this universal basic income, and it literally said it was communism. That's the earmarks of communism. Cool, of course it does. And who's going to pay for it? And this is what I mean, like taxpayers, people that can afford to leave Canada or being forced out of Canada because they can't afford like this increase in taxes, because their cost of living hasn't gone down, but their costs have gone way up, like not only for their own like personal costs of living, but for their businesses as well. And they're fleeing Canada. Again, more people I know personally, just a few more, but are moving to Texas and Tennessee and Georgia because it was way too much taxes, and they work in the oil fields, and yeah, they work with the oil companies and moving to Texas. Really conflicted about doing it because loves Canada, patriotic veteran, one of the people I'm talking about, and struggled with this decision, but no choice. And such a lovely family, 4 kids, just an incredible human being, super smart engineer, again, veteran of service, and he and his family leaving Canada. Cool. Okay. All right, so the Luda report. Yes, that's the report I was talking about, the Luda report. Okay, so yes, many deaths in Nazi concentration and extermination camps were caused by famine, disease, and abuse, exacerbated by disrupted supply routes, particularly as World War II progressed and Allied bombing campaigns intensified. Just absolute horrific conditions. Absolutely disgusting what was happening to them. And and we even put Ukrainians in concentration camps in Canada. Oh my goodness, absolutely disgusting. And Japanese in the U.S. And it was actually Warren from the Warren report. He was the one that authorized that, and never apologized for it. Okay, so were there evacuations from the Eastern Front? Because again, there were people like basically in the middle of Europe that were getting targeted from the West and the East. Because again, during this time as well, there was the Bolshevik Revolution. There was the Red Army. Like there was the communism, with Stalin and Lenin throughout this period as well. And so perhaps this was a response to this, and this was a response to this, and then people get caught in the middle. But the majority of the countries within Europe at that time, during this period, were socialist communist countries. And that's where the majority of the concentration kill camps were. Not in actual Germany itself, like places like Poland, Hungary, etc. And okay, so the evacuations from the Eastern Front during World War II were triggered by the rapid advance of the Soviet Red Army against Nazi Germany and its allies, beginning in 1943 and intensifying through 1944-1945. These evacuations involved the forced movement of German troops, civilians, and camp prisoners, including Jews, prisoners of war, and forced laborers. Because I will reiterate too, it was largely Jewish people, but also there were Christians, poor people, black people, disabled people that were also put in these camps. Westward, okay, so they were moved westward to prevent capture, destroy evidence of atrocities, and maintain control over resources and populations. So Eastern Front, 1941-45, the largest theater of World War II, stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea, where Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa, June 1941. By 1943, the tide turned with Soviet victories at Stalingrad and Kursk. Soviet offensive from 1943, Battle of Kursk, to 1945, the fall of Berlin. The Red Army pushed westward, liberating occupied territories and exposing Nazi camps. And so in the 40s, was that liberation? Or was that another form of being part of a totalitarian communist regime versus a fascist Nazi regime? Neither was a good choice, in my opinion. So after Stalingrad, January 1943, the Red Army regained momentum, recapturing Ukraine, 1943-44, and Poland, 1944. By January 1945, they were 40 miles from Berlin. So German strategy, the Wehrmacht evacuated troops to establish new defensive lines, the Vistula Line, and avoid encirclement as seen in the retreat from Kiev, November 1943. So impact, 2.5 million German soldiers were killed or captured by 1945 per the German High Command. Okay, so yeah, like I said before, I said anywhere between 3 and 4 million. They're saying 2.5. I thought it was a little bit more than that. But maybe it was, they're not counting like because even like 1946, there were still people detained. And anyway, destruction of evidence, camp evacuations. As the Soviets approached, the Nazis evacuated concentration and extermination camps. Hide evidence. SS units burned records. It wouldn't surprise me. And forced 60,000 prisoners on death marches westward. So surprised that the number is so low. Himmler ordered Operation Hof to erase traces. Okay, so impact approximately 250 to 300,000 died on marches due to exhaustion. But I thought you said there were 60,000 that were on the march. So anyway, sometimes Grok gets it wrong. I have to look at this. But a lot of people died even on the march, fleeing the east to go to the west. Civilian displacement, ethnic Germans, fear of Soviet reprisals, example, Red Army atrocities in East Prussia, led to the flight of 12 to 14 million ethnic Germans from Poland, Ukraine, and the Baltics, per the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration. Forced labor, 2 million foreign workers were moved to Germany to sustain the war economy as supply lines collapsed. Yeah, so camps like Auschwitz saw inmate numbers double to 100,000 by late 1944 due to evacuations from the east, worsening famine and disease. So Auschwitz was one of the biggest ones. Numbers doubled to 100,000 by late 1945, and most of the deaths happened in the last 12 to 15 months of the war. So did they just keep on adding numbers every... Anyway, I got to look into that. Because 100,000 in the largest one. And then Auschwitz, then like the idea by late... Okay, so to 100,000 by late 1944. 60,000 evacuated January, so early 1945, Auschwitz, same camp. So, but they're saying that there was how many? See, this is what I mean. I don't mean to sound any certain way. It's just... I'm just trying to see if they have it here with the... Okay, so... Okay, so it doesn't tell me the number. I've done this on previous, but I'm going to look at the deaths of Jewish people in Auschwitz. Was Hitler trying to defeat communism? Yes, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime were explicitly committed to defeating communism, viewing it as a moral, ideological, and geopolitical enemy. And even in Mein Kampf, it's mentioned. So this goal was a cornerstone of Nazi policy, driving the invasion of the Soviet Union and shaping the broader context of World War II. Nazi ideology, Hitler's National Socialism, outlined in Mein Kampf 1925, and socialism, National Socialist. As soon as you put socialist in the word, in the title, I'm out. No. And portrayed communism, specifically the Soviet Union under the Bolsheviks, anti-Semitic. So I'm not going to get into that. So anti-communism, blaming Jews for both capitalism and communism. Rise to power, the Nazi Party gained support in the 1930s by opposing the German Communist Party, clashing in street battles, example, the 1932 Berlin riots, and leveraging fear of a communist takeover after the 1918 German Revolution. People did have a reason to be nervous of communism coming into their country because of just how many people were being impacted by it, even within their own continent, which is really weird. Okay, so Hitler launched a massive invasion June 22nd, 1941, with 3.8 million Axis troops aiming to destroy the Judeo-Bolshevik regime and seize Lebensraum, living space in the east. The plan, outlined in Directive Number 21, sought to dismantle the Communist Party and install Nazi governance. Again, neither's good. So, anyways. Anti-Comintern Pact, 1936. Germany, Japan, and Italy signed this pact to oppose the Communist International Comintern, led by Moscow, signaling a unified anti-communist front. And actually, even it was the 1920s, 30s, Mussolini, Italia, Italian anti-fascist groups were huge then, and he was a dictator. A lot of domestic suppression after the 1933 Reichstag fire, which was blamed on communists, by the way, which it wasn't. So it was Vanderlub, Mornis Vanderlub, and he was like 23 or 24 years old. He was hung. He was blamed for the fire of the Reichstag, which is German for parliament. And even an SS officer or law enforcement, like, it literally in court records had said that he drove Marinus Vanderlub to the Reichstag and the fire had already been started. And this guy was blamed for it. He later exonerated, etc. But like, I mean, he died 24 years old. Like, I just can't even fucking believe this. And he was an activist, communist. And again, the fall guy. He was the fall guy. And immediately after that, Hitler banned the KPD, arresting over 100,000 members and executing leaders like Ernst Thälmann, 1944. So people within government, people within the academic fields, etc., people that were opposing Nazism and communism as well, like these people were killed. So anyone that didn't toe the party line and weren't supporting and enabling, again, a dictator, killed. Or anyways, or had to flee. So the Night of the Long Knives, 1934, purged the essays left-leaning elements to align with anti-communist industrialists. Yeah, so communism, atheist communism is the biggest threat, in my humble opinion. Because there's no morality. Despite the fact that they say there's not. The Red Army's counteroffensive Stalingrad 1943 turned the tide, liberating Eastern Europe by 1945 and ending Nazi ambitions. The cost of approximately 27 million Soviet deaths, including 8.7 million military losses. Approximately 27 million Soviet deaths. But yeah. Okay, so World War I, 1914-1918, erupted due to complex web of long-term tensions, immediate triggers, and entwined political ideologies among the opposing forces. First international conflict involving over 70 million soldiers and causing over 10 million deaths, including 66,000 Canadians. I don't need to know this. Okay, cause of World War I, militarism. Nations built massive armies and navies. Example, Germany's 1914 army of 4.5 million. Britain's dreadnought race. This arms race fostered a culture of aggression with leaders believing war was inevitable. Alliances, the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Italy, and Triple Entente, France, Britain, Russia, created a rigid bloc system of conflict in one region. Example, the Balkans dragged all into war. Imperialism, competition for colonies. Example, Africa, Asia, and places in Europe. Heightened tensions with Britain and France clashing with Germany over international dominance. Nationalism. Ethnic rivalries like Serbian nationalism against Austria-Hungary and German unification, seeking place in the sun, fueled aggression. Obviously, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand by a Serbian nationalist allegedly was the spark. People that were looking for centralized banking, centralized currency to be competitive with other major currencies in order to stimulate their economy and not be exploited, in my humble opinion. Okay. Okay. All right, none of this is too important. So World War I, as Grok is apparently saying, no, it was not a straightforward left versus right ideological battle. I agree with that as well, because I'm saying there are steering committees that are creating these narratives. Anyways, though, elements of both extremes were present among the opposing forces. The conflict was primarily driven by nationalism, imperialism, and militarism, with political ideologies like liberalism, monarchism, and communism I'd say communism playing, I'd say a major role. Okay, so all right. All right. Okay, so World War I ideological legacy. The war's aftermath, Treaty of Versailles, 1919, fueled both far left Russian Revolution and far right rise of fascism movements, setting the stage for World War II's clear ideological battle. Example, Nazis versus Soviets. I'd like to say communists, not Soviets. World War I itself, however, was a pre-ideological conflict rooted in the 19th century power struggles. It was a yeah. Okay, so I talked about Mussolini a bit. 1920s rise to power and early fascist rule. So I'm bringing up Mussolini because I've talked about Ciao Bella Ciao. This was, I was talking about a popular song in the 1920s and 30s, an anti-fascist song. Again, these far left radicals that were, it was like that built parties and gangs to go against what they considered to be far right fascists. And so when he had that on the casing, it didn't surprise me when Tyler Robinson had that Ciao Bella Ciao on the bullet casing, thinking that he is an anti-fascist fucking idiot. Charlie Kirk was not a fascist, you dumb fucking idiot. Anyway, and I'll say like everyone else says, that brings us up. I didn't agree with everything that he shared, but I thought he was incredibly brilliant, way smarter than me in so many ways. And he had a family and stuff like that, and he was a moderate, and so I didn't agree with everything, but I agreed with so much of what he said, and I learned a lot from him, despite the fact that he's younger than me, and which doesn't matter. What a waste. Yeah, so always building militaries and government before using them against the people. So again, even with Benito Mussolini, his early career included far left socialist roots. But by the 1920s, he had decisively shifted to the far right, founding and leading Italian fascism. So I don't know. So he joined the Italian Socialist Party in 1901, just like Adolf Hitler's Socialist Party in the 1920s. And then they become extremists. So I don't think that there's any I don't think it's just a coincidence. So, editing Avanti from 1912 to 1914 as a socialist newspaper, he advocated class struggle, anti-militarism, and workers' rights, aligning with Marxist principles. He opposed Italy's entry into World War I, a hallmark of far-left socialism. So as soon as he became a nationalist, despite the fact that they're nationalist communists, he was considered to be far right. Rejected social equality, aligning with industrialists, the monarchy, and the Catholic Church. Oh, far right if you're supporting the Catholic Church. Okay, so yeah, so he went from far left to far right. Mussolini crushed socialist and communist opposition. Corporatism, state-controlled unions favored elites, not workers. Oh my God. And we're seeing this in Canada. Nationalism glorified Italian superiority, opposing socialist universalism. So not people not wanting a new world order, I guess. Yeah, so even Grok says, yes, fascism can exhibit characteristics of both the far left and the far right, depending on historical context and its interpretation. Yeah, who's writing the history books? His story. Okay, so far left emphasizes radical equality when it should be equal opportunity, which does not mean equal outcome. Okay, just to reiterate. And that's based on human behavior. You're never going to change that level of human behavior, like the competition, the drive. Anyway, emphasizes radical equality, collectivism, and anti-capitalism, often rejecting traditional hierarchies. Far right prioritizes authoritarianism, nationalism, and traditional hierarchies. Example, religion. Anyways, which is not far right. And it's not opposing egalitarianism. It's merit based, with some assistance to get people again to have opportunities they wouldn't necessarily have, like based on whatever reason, some form of a disability, or but to try to build quotas. No, we are collapsing our society by doing this stuff that we're doing. Okay. I talked about the Y and X axis for the political spectrums and level of control from the government. And so the Y-axis, level of control for my model breakdown. So the top of the Y-axis is authoritarianism, high government control, centralized power, suppression of dissent. Example, Stalin's USSR, Hitler's Germany. Bottom, anarchy, no government, total individual freedom, theoretical stateless societies like anarcho-communism or communism. So with they allege or claim that at the end, when there's finally the utopia, there'll be no hierarchy, the no government, no leaders, and no age limits, no repercussions for rape or murder, things like that. When you have no way of dealing with it, and there are going to always be people within societies that are on the far left or the far right of the behavioral spectrums, and people that will be, like have more sociopathic or psychopathic behaviors, etc., that will exploit people. There are predators in all species, in all societies. It's a fact, and more so in the human species than any other species, in my humble opinion. Yeah, so neither is good. So yeah, anarchy, absence of authority. Dumb. And then far left would be communism, far right would be Nazism, because the x-axis is the political spectrum. So how many people died under Mussolini? People were saying that he was a nationalist. However, breakdown of deaths, domestic repression, 1922 to 1943, political opponents. Mussolini's regime executed or imprisoned thousands of socialists, communists, and anti-fascists. The 1924 murder of Giacomo Matteotti and subsequent purges killed 1,000 to 2,000 directly, with thousands more dying in confinement. Example, Confino exile camps. It's actually in Italy right now. I think that this could be wrong, but people from Italy are saying that over 40% of the population is now refusing to work because they do not want to pay, because it's an insane amount of taxes and cost of living is going up, and way more immigration than they can sustain, and so they're this is their way of fighting back. And I'm not saying that Canada should do that. I think we should not. We need like lower unemployment rates, but I mean, if we're just going to be abused and exploited, and the tax money being handled and managed by people like Carney, who are destroying our country, then I don't know, maybe there's something to that. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Okay. Fascist back black shirt attacks 1920, 1925 resulted in 300 to 500 deaths. Okay, so 5 to 10,000 deaths per historian. RJB Bosworth, Mussolini 2002. Colonial wars. Italian colonial wars, the Ethiopian War, 1935-1936. Italy's invasion killed 30 to 100,000 Ethiopian soldiers and civilians, with estimates varying due to guerrilla resistance and Italian use of mustard gas. Example, Second Italo-Ethiopian War records. Okay, that's a crime. That's a war crime and a crime against humanity. Civilian deaths from famine and reprisals may add 100 to 200,000 deaths in Ethiopia, 1935-1936. Libya, 1920s, 1930s. The pacification of Libya, 1923 to 32, against Senussi rebels, killed 40 to 70,000 Libyans, including 10 to 15,000 in concentration camps, per Italian colonial archives and Angelo del Boca. Total colonial, 170 to 370,000 deaths. Yeah. So they're adding in the World War II deaths into these numbers of alleging that like people died under a fascist regime when it was in fact well, they did change their stance in the war midway through. I think it was 1940. Yeah, World War III. Yeah, 43. Yeah. Okay, so no, wait. Italy's involvement, Greece, North Africa, Soviet Union resulted in 150,000 Italian soldier deaths and an estimated 100 to 200,000 civilian deaths in occupied territories. Example, Yugoslavia, Ethiopia, due to reprisals and starvation. Allied bombings, 60 to 70,000 Italian civilians died from Allied air raids. Example, 1943 Milan bombings, indirectly tied to Mussolini's war alignment. Okay. Yeah, so large World War II contributions, colonial wars, and domestic repression really not that significant. It's a lot. Again, that's okay. So I asked Grok, do you consider nationalism the same as fascism? I apologize if my previous response suggested I consider nationalism the same as fascism. That was not my intent. Nationalism and fascism are distinct concepts, though they can overlap, especially in extreme forms. Yeah, in extreme forms. Anything can, even communism, like I said. So nationalism is a broad ideology centered on pride in one's nation, while fascism is a specific authoritarian and ultra-nationalist political system or ideology. So nationalism, a sense of identity and loyalty to a nation based on shared culture, language, or history. Can be moderate, example, Canadian pride post-World War I, or extreme, Serbian nationalism triggering World War I via Franz Ferdinand's assassination. Anyway. Fascism, which is completely different than nationalism, like I'll reiterate, because having a sense of identity and loyalty to my country and serving my country and being proud of that and having my Canadian flag on my wall does not make me a friggin' fascist, you morons that think that on the left. Fascism, a far-right ideology combining authoritarianism, militarism, and ultranationalism, rejecting democracy and promoting a single-party state. Key figures like Mussolini and Hitler. Features cult of personality, suppression of dissent, and aggressive expansion. Which is, like, anyway. Scope for differences. Scope, nationalism is a general sentiment. Example, British Empire's unity in World War I. Fascism is a structured political system or ideology. Goals, nationalism seeks identity or unity. Example, India's independence movements. Fascism demands total control and conquest, just like communists. So there's more overlap of communists with fascists than nationalists. Nationalism can coexist with democracy. No shit. Yeah, so fascism is inherently authoritarian, and so is communism. Yeah, people have been nationalists for thousands of years. So final answer from Grok, I don't consider nationalism the same as fascism. Nationalism is a broader identity-based ideology, while fascism is a specific authoritarian system that exploits ultranationalism. They overlap in extreme cases, just like communism, but nationalism can exist without fascism's totalitarianism. No shit. So wanted to do anyway. Okay, so World War II alignment. Joined the Axis 1936 to assert Italy's role alongside Nazi Germany, reflecting nationalist ambitions in the Mediterranean and Balkans. Colonial wars and nationalism. So you might question if these wars, example Ethiopia's deaths, served nationalism, given their cost and foreign focus. However, Mussolini presented them as national rejuvenation, gaining domestic support. Example 1935 public rallies. The toll reflects imperial overreach, not a lack of nationalism. Exactly. It reflects imperial overreach. So we're seeing people in Canada as like, why are we funding these friggin' proxy wars that are not helping anyone in Ukraine or Russia, like innocent civilians, etc., and destroying infrastructure? Why are we supporting these genocides, these war crimes all over the friggin' world when we know where this leads? And it's only benefiting the elite types like Carney. Anyway. Okay, so Benito Mussolini can be both a nationalist and a colonialist, as these identities are not mutually exclusive, but rather complementary in his case. Nationalism focuses on pride and unity within a nation, while colonialism involves expanding that nation's power over foreign territories. Mussolini's rule, 1922 to 1943, exemplified this duality, using colonial wars to bolster Italian national identity. So many people are doing this now. France is still doing it. Britain's still doing it. Anyway. Yeah, people that want their country to do well and have national pride are not fascists. So did Mussolini act for money and power, not nationalism, using his people to their death? Your perspective that Benito Mussolini's actions were driven by money and power rather than nationalism, and that he used his people, leading to many deaths, highlights a valid critique of his regime. While nationalism was a central ideological pillar, it can be argued that his pursuit of personal and state power, often at the expense of economic gain and human lives, underpinned his colonial wars and wartime decisions. Money and power as motivation. Economic ambitions. Mussolini's colonial wars, Libya, Ethiopia, aimed to secure resources, example Libyan oil, Ethiopian gold. Sound familiar? US is doing it, other countries are doing it, Israel's doing it, we're doing it. Anyway. And markets boosting Italy's economy. However, historian R.J.B. Bosworth argues that these were costly. Ethiopians' war cost 12.1 billion lire versus 1.5 billion gained, suggesting economic gain was secondary to prestige. Wow. Just like Trudeau and Carney, and don't care how much money they're... Anyway, personal power. Mussolini cultivated a cult of personality as Il Duce, I don't know how you pronounce that. Anyway, centralizing control via the 1925 dictatorship decree and aligning with Hitler to elevate his status. His 1936 Ethiopian conquest was more about personal glory than national need. Evidence, the 1935 invasion killing 130 to 300,000 was pushed despite economic strain and all those friggin' deaths, with Mussolini admitting in private letters, example to Count Ciano, that it was to impress the world. To impress the world, not for profit. Interesting. He wanted to impress. Ego. Narcissism. Nationalism as a tool. Just like Hitler did, just like friggin' so many others. Stalin, Lenin, Mao Zedong, Kim Jong-un. Nationalism as a tool. Mussolini framed these actions as ultra-nationalist, reviving reviving Roman glory, but the rhetoric often masked self-interest. The 50 to 70,000 Libyan deaths and Ethiopian toll were sold as national triumphs. Absolutely disgusting. Yet public support waned as costs mounted. Example, 1940 Greece invasion failure. So historian Denis Max Smith, Mussolini 1981, suggests nationalism was a propaganda tool to justify power grabs, not the sole driver. Use of his people and deaths, so military losses, so many. Colonial toll, so many. Domestic repression, 5 to 10,000, and so crazy. Yeah, so with many Italians dying for his ambitions rather than national survival. And we're getting involved in wars we have no business being involved in. It's anyway. Economic ruin, 1930s debt crisis and military disasters suggest power and prestige outweighed national benefit. I ask if people that follow Islam are nationalists. No, not all Islamists are nationalists, though the two can overlap depending on context. Islamism is a political ideology seeking to implement Islamic law, Sharia law, and principles and governance, often transcending national boundaries, while nationalism emphasizes loyalty to a specific nation state based on ethnicity, culture, or territory. See how Grok like spins it depending on like what they're talking about, whether it be regarding like Christians, whether it be regarding white people or different groups of people, you know, and it's just so frustrating how anyways. Islamism, a movement advocating Islamic governance ranging from moderate reform, example, Muslim Brotherhood. That's not moderate, by the way, the Muslim Brotherhood, and I'll get into that, to radical militancy, example, ISIS or Boko Haram, other groups. It can be internationalist, focusing on the Ummah, which is, anyways, global jihad or international jihad is what I like to call it because it's not a globe, as we're taught. And so with jihad, that's like world domination of this religion. Yeah, so Al-Qaeda seeks an international caliphate, opposing nation states, just like communists do, by the way. They don't want to have boundaries or nation states. No, no, no. They want to have it where it's under atheism, communist rulership. And so the same thing, again, for the radicals on this side. Don't want Sharia law. It's not compatible with Christianity or with Canadian culture or with American culture. Yeah. The hypocrisy. Okay. Prophet Muhammad addressed in early Muslim communities, survival against Meccan polytheists, Jewish tribes, and Byzantine Persian empires. Verses on fighting, example, the Surah 929, 2191, were specifically to defensive wars or treaties, example, Battle of Badr, not perpetual mandate. Fight in the way of Allah, those who fight you, but do not transgress limits. These limits warfare to self-defense with peace urged if aggression ceases. Again, this is cherry picking because there are verses that absolutely talk about defeating the infidels. Exactly. Fight those who do not believe in Allah. Unless they give you a tax, unless they give you money, the jizya. And if not, and you don't give us the taxes and you don't follow our religion, then we kill you. And I've even showed people on the record saying that. Yeah, you can pay not to play. No, you have to pay not to play or you die. All right. Allah forbids you not to deal kindly with those who fought not against you. Yeah, communism. Far left ideology advocating collective ownership, the overthrow of capitalism, and a stateless international community, the one world order. The Soviet Union and Maoist China are key examples, and we're getting there in Canada. Yeah, the working men have no country. Again, they're talking about having no nation at all. Like the whole world to be, it's made. So what do you mean they're not nationalist? But one nation under communism. No, thank you. Look, defining the terms: nationalism, loyalty to a specific nation state, often based on ethnicity, culture, or territory, seeking its sovereignty or expansion. Yeah, seeking its sovereignty or expansion, and communists have even proven that they have expanded outwards, and want to expand outwards to take over the entire world. Yeah, so a Marxist ideology aimed for an international classless, stateless society by overthrowing capitalism, by overthrowing the world leadership, world systems of government, by overthrowing the Constitution, Charter of Rights and Freedoms, by there's really, and then again all religions. I know I'm being redundant on this, but I'm just going through my Grok conversations. Yeah, stateless international community. That's what Carney wants. And he wants that because he gets a lot of power and money for doing that. They want to dissolve boundaries. Stuff like that, but yeah, anarchy. Yeah. Yeah, communism says that it's a harmonious, self-managed, stateless community based on collective ownership, feasible. Oh, sorry, they're saying that their intent is for a harmonious, self-managed, stateless community based on collective ownership. Is it feasible? I don't think it's feasible. Okay, so communist experiments, we've got them all here. Don't work. Anarchist experiments didn't work. Common failures, hierarchy reemerges. It never leaves. Even in collectives, leaders, example Lenin, Mao, centralized power, contradicting statelessness. Conflict, human competition, example resources disputes in Spain, undermine harmony. Anyways, there's more examples of that as well. Social nature, humans thrive in groups but often form hierarchies, example tribal chiefs, modern CEOs. Per anthropologist Robin Dunbar, Human Evolution 2014, a stateless society requires suppressing the instinct. Self-interest, game theory, prisoner's dilemma, suggests individuals prioritize personal gain over collective good unless coerced, as seen in Soviet black markets, but also again as seen in the prisoner's dilemma, and I've shared that before as well a few times. Diversity, cultural and religious differences, example 2.4 billion Christians, 1.9 billion Muslims, 2025 estimates, challenged uniform self-management, fueling conflict. Studies, example Milgram obedience experiments 1963, show humans defer to authority, making voluntary cooperation rare at scale. Yeah, so feasibility assessment, theoretical appeal. A harmonious self-managed community assumes altruism and consensus possible in small, homogenous groups. Example, Amish communities. Sorry. So consensus is possible, small, homogenous groups. That's the only time it's possible. So, you communist friggin' radicals, why don't you try to move into an Amish community or create your own Amish type community and leave us all alone? And don't expect us to, anyway. pay for your you just deciding to live a lazy lifestyle for no reason. Not because you're down in your luck or you're a single mother or you have a disability or so many other things, right? Like there are people that really do need to have assistance, but there's a lot of people that are abusing it. Anyway, and it's people on the left that want the handouts and they're communism, blah blah blah. Well, no, you still have to work in those societies, by the way, and it's not great. So when you ask the average North Korean how their life is, anyway. Historical reality: large-scale attempts require authoritarianism to enforce collective ownership, deviating from harmony. Yeah, so even anarchist successes collapsed under external or internal pressure. Your doubt is supported. Human behavior leans towards hierarchy and competition, making a stateless, harmonious society unfeasible without force, which contradicts the vision. So, black and white. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Right there, Grok and I do agree on that. Yeah, so what does anarchy do to a society? Refers to a society without a centralized government or any form of government or leadership at all, or hierarchical authority. Seeks to replace state control with voluntary cooperation. Yeah, again, human behavior. Self-management and decentralized organization, often aiming for equality and mutual aid. We see this, we have examples of this, of these, anyway, where they don't work. What anarchy does in society. Okay, so it dismantles governance, police, and bureaucracies, advocating direct democracy or consensus-based decision-making. Yeah, it does not reduce top-down control. Promotes self-management. That's a lie. It stifles self-management, stifles people's desire to want to work when you're getting like a universal basic income. Like, no, it does not work. I'm talking about the current example of it as well, more importantly. Yeah, replaces competition. Okay, that in itself. Cooperation drives survival. Yeah, it's very short-lived. Struggles with scale and opposing forces, absolutely, or external threats. So challenges existing power structures. So it opposes capitalism, religion, and well, I'm just going to stay with capitalism and religion because they're talking about patriarchy, but anyway, that doesn't apply. Seeking to dismantle oppressive systems. Yeah, well, I mean, there are what people would consider patriarchies, but not in the U.S. in the Canada, like people want to allege. I think it's hiring of more friggin' DEI woke hires at the House of Commons and within academia. Okay, I think that's a big friggin' problem. Yeah. Leaving societies open to external invasion or internal power grabs. That's why everyone in the friggin' world would have to buy into this, and they will not. Like, who do these people think they are? Like leaders of the world? Like, do you think you're God? You don't believe in God, so of course, like, you are replacing yourself in humans as gods, I guess, which is incorrect. Okay, so cooperation versus competition. Anarchy assumes mutual aid, but human tendencies towards and self-interest, prisoner's dilemma often resurface. Yeah, anyways, without rulers. Bloody weak. Disorganization, lack of unified leadership led to chaotic defense with the internal factions weakening resistance. So for negative outcomes, regarding anarchism. I'll get this say. Ukrainian anarchists under Nestor Makhno created a stateless region of 7 million during the Russian Civil War, not for very long, opposing Bolsheviks and whites. So there was the Red Army and the White Army, and they were actually fighting against each other as well, anti-communists within the USSR. So external conquest of the Bolshevik Red Army after initial alliance invaded in 1921, executing Makhno's leaders and killing 10 to 20,000 supporters. So lawlessness without a state, banditry and revenge killings, example against landlords, destabilized the region, alienating peasants. That's interesting. So yeah, and there's probably rapes and murders and stuff like that as too, rapes and murders as well, and like no one being held accountable because there's no law enforcement. There's no cops. Anyway. So yeah, so the experiment lasted 3 years, collapsing under military pressure and internal chaos. Yeah, anarchy's inability to sustain defense or order led to its rapid demise. So the whites were a key opposing force in this historical case, and their involvement helps explain the collapse of the anarchist experiment. Okay, so the whites' Russian Belie were the anti-Bolshevik forces during the Russian Civil War, 1917 to 23, opposing the Communist Red Army led by the Bolsheviks. They were a coalition of monarchists, liberals, and other anti-communist groups. See, they're not going to talk about the right wing here. Right-wing people. Right against left, including former Tsarist officers and supported by foreign powers, example, Britain and France. Okay, so white opposition. The whites, led by figures like Anton Denikin, sought to restore the Russian Empire or a non-communist government. They viewed Makhno's anarchists as a threat due to their anti-authoritarian stance and control of key territories, example, Donbass region. The whites attacked Makhnovia in 1919, clashing with anarchist forces. Initially, Makhno allied with the Reds against the whites, but after the whites were weakened, the Bolsheviks turned on the anarchists, invading in 1921 and causing all the deaths. So, ideological class. The whites opposed both communism and anarchy, favoring a centralized state. Makhnovia's control of Ukraine grain-rich regions disrupted white supply lines and offered a base for red operations. So they were actually helping the commies. Nice. The whites aimed to fill post-Tsarist void, seeing anarchist autonomy as a rival to their authority. So they were a military faction. Going back to how many people have died because of communism. Okay, so claim socialism, communism serve military goals. It's freaking bright. I can't freaking see. Okay. Okay, I'm probably boring people at this point. But again, Remembrance Day just passed. And we talk a lot about far-right extremism and not a lot about far-left extremism. And lest we forget that, because we seem to not be remembering at all based on the way our government is operating. Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, so does Canada have a large Muslim Brotherhood population? Grok is not giving me a lot of information on this, but I have looked at sources and people are saying that Canada has a very large Muslim Brotherhood population. And but we don't track or report or monitor this organization as much as we should be doing because we don't classify it as a terrorist organization. So the Muslim Brotherhood presence and estimates, again, is total bullshit. It's way higher than what they're saying. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so broader context. Muslim diversity in Canada. 1.8 million Muslims are Sunni, majority Shia and Ahmadi. Okay, so do other countries consider the Muslim Brotherhood to be a terrorist organization? Yes, several countries have designated the Muslim Brotherhood or its branches as a terrorist organization, primarily in the Middle East, but also in Europe and elsewhere. This reflects geopolitical tensions, particularly with Muslim Brotherhood-linked groups like, not only Hamas, Boko Haram, ISIS, etc., extremist radicals within these organizations. And there's funding going back and forth. And Canada is also funding and supporting these groups as well, directly and indirectly, and also through the Muslim Brotherhood here in Canada. Like, what the hell are we doing? Yeah, not a political movement. People are trying to say, oh, the Antifa is an ideology. No, it's not. You are a terrorist group. You are organized. You have plenty of people. You're working with people within the friggin' government too. At all, like, it's just disgusting. You are a terrorist group, and Antifa Canada needs to declare, respectfully speaking, Antifa and the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations, and they work together. And I don't know why, because they couldn't be polar opposite regarding like their ideologies, but it's their goals that are aligned. Their goals of dismantling Western society, capitalism, Christianity, white people, target, like, you name it. And so they have that goal. And then once that's achieved, they are going to go against each other, like always happens. All right, so Egypt banned and designated as terrorists after 2013 ouster of President Mohamed Morsi, who was MB affiliated. Saudi Arabia, over a decade ago, declared them a terrorist organization. The UAE, listed as a terrorist organization, targets MB charities and affiliates. Bahrain, designated as terrorist, supports Saudi UAE stance. Russia, banned as extremists linked to terrorism. Austria, first European country to ban Muslim Brotherhood under anti-terrorist law, prohibits slogans and literature, which this is bullshit because Russia is European as well. Anyway. Initial ban. Wow. Russia. Jordan raided and shut down MB headquarters, cut ties with Egyptian MB. Libya, designated as terrorists, accused of supporting militias. Yeah, so the Muslim Brotherhood. So the United States, no full designation of MB as terrorist organization, despite bills like the Muslim Brotherhood Terrorist Designation Act of 2025, reintroduced by Republican Mario Diaz-Balart and Jared Moskowitz. Some branches, example Hamas, are designated as terrorist groups. The FBI, and why are we funding these groups? The FBI and State Department cite lack of evidence for international terrorism criteria. Bullshit. Syria, Indonesia, Pakistan, Morocco, Tunisia. Legal political parties with MB roots. Operate without terrorist labels, cooperating with governments. The UK monitors the Muslim Brotherhood as an extremist group, but not formally terrorist. They should be considered a terrorist organization in the UK especially. There are a lot in the UK, in Europe now, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. Okay. Oh, someone's mail is probably coming here. All right, so Brock was talking about the USA being a democracy, and I'm saying the USA is a republic, not a democracy. I don't know if you can hear that. 12:50. Okay, so then I asked, was Kirsten... I'm almost at the end here. It's so distracting. See if they stop. Anyway. A lot of people posting about Keir Starmer being head of the Crown Prosecution Service. Just one second. I'm going to mute this for a second. Sorry, I had to talk to my dogs. So Keir Starmer is the Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, and head of the Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, from November 2008 to November 2013, which included the time when a prosecution attempt against Jimmy Savile was reviewed and dropped in October 2009, and what they alleged to have been insufficient evidence, which apparently there was not insufficient evidence, and so this should not have been dropped. But people are blaming Keir Starmer, who again is a crook. He's a criminal. He's a traitor to his country. But apparently he did not see the case, so he's saying it didn't go to his desk because it wasn't important enough. Are you friggin' kidding me? Not important enough? And so it was only upon his death, I guess, that they finally started speaking out against it. Fucking cowards. This is what's going to happen with the Epstein list too. They're going to wait till these people are fucking dead, and then be like, "Oh, it was dropped," or like, like we didn't, expose these people because there wasn't enough evidence. Bullshit. It's so frustrating. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so then I was talking about monopoles. Oh my god, I got into so many things. How many hours in this am I? What time is it? Holy shit, I'm almost in 3 hours. Wow. Oh, I'm supposed to go to the gym today. Okay, so 11-year solar cycle. So well-documented periodic variation of the sun's magnetic activity measured by sunspot numbers, solar radiation, and coronal mass ejections. So again, NASA lies a lot, and so Grok doesn't always get it right. But okay, so talk about this was very interesting. So I want to make sure I get into it. So the sun has an international magnetic field, or has a magnetic field that reverses approximately every 11 years. This is what is being alleged by Grok. I'm looking way more into this, but I just want to start this conversation so that people can go on their own research tangents afterwards and assist me with this. So, okay, it's a field primarily a dipole with north and south poles, as measured by instruments like the Solar Dynamics Observatory (SDO) and the Parker Solar Probe. Okay, still saying that monopoles are theorized. Though I don't think that they're. I think we're just looking at it from the wrong perspective. Respectfully. Okay, so. Driven by the sun's dynamo effect is what they're alleging. Twisting and untwisting of magnetic field lines in the convective zones leading to sunspots and flares. See, again, this is all just... The full magnetic polarity reversal occurs over 22 years, 2 cycles, as allegedly the north and south poles allegedly flip. So allegedly observed since 1755. Samuel Schwab. Okay, so affects Earth's climate marginally, slight temperature variations, and auroras. Okay, so the 19-year cycle, the metonic cycle, not solar activity. This is a lunisolar calendar cycle where the phases of the moon repeat on the same calendar date every 19 years. Like I've talked about this before. So every 19 years, lunisolar calendar cycle where the phases of the moon repeat on the same calendar date every 19 years. It was used in ancient calendars for aligning lunar and solar years, not for solar magnetic activity. So, just clarifying that. Okay, the sun's magnetic field apparently is a dipole, 2 poles, north and south, generated by the solar dynamo. Magnetograms from the Wilcox Solar Observatory showed a temporary monopole-like bias, negative flux dominant, and very, very interesting, negative flux dominant, meaning like a negative charge being measured, not a positive charge within the magnetic field, within the magnetogram. My goodness. Okay, so the sun's field is dynamic. Sunspots move across the surface. Grok is really not that great in answering questions sufficiently. Like they always brings in previous conversations and makes a mess of things. And anyway, I should get back to ChatGPT and others. The sun's main cycle is 11 years. Moving dipole, allegedly not a monopole, though it can appear monopole like during minima due to observational bias. So again, they're telling us not to believe our eyes. And so they're saying that it can appear, though, the sun can appear as a monopole. Very interesting. So I started asking for proof. So the sun's magnetic field undergoes a polarity reversal approximately every 11 years, coinciding with the peak of the solar cycle, the solar maximum. This process, part of the 22-year full Hale cycle, where the dipole field flips and then returns, is what it's alleging. But again, anyway, has been observed since the 1950s through magnetograms and satellite data. So they're saying the reversal occurs as sunspots and solar activity tangle and untangle the field lines with the north and south poles swapping polarity. Okay, so I tried to open this up. So this is what I said. So I say, I think this is a contained cosmos. The sun is local and closer and possibly a monopole magnet that moves around us on a circular ring path. And there is a change in the magnetic field depending on where it is on its ring path through the tropics and equator. And there's, and then monopoles also radiate radiation. Again, I was all over the place. This was me at like 3 a.m, by the way. Okay, so I'm just proposing a theory here. Again, I don't know. Fascinating alternative. Okay, so the sun is a main sequence star, allegedly, with a magnetic field generated by the dynamo effect, convection and rotation in its plasma, producing a dipole field. Magnetograms, example, Wilcox Solar Observatory, show north and south poles, reversing every 11 years. Example, giving these examples. Okay, so solar data from Parker Solar Probe consistently show a dipole or a multipolar field with no isolated pole. A monopole sun would require rethinking electromagnetic theory unsupported by current measurements. So standard model, the sun appears to move across the sky due to Earth's rotation daily and orbit yearly with its path inclined 23.5 degrees to the equator. Absolutely not. My claim is not that at all. That's the standard model. Okay, so a ring path suggests the sun orbits Earth closely, varying its magnetic influence by position. This aligns with a geocentric model. Yeah, again, so fucking biased. All right. Yeah, so I've done so many videos on this, so I don't want to go down that tangent. Okay, so magnetic field changes by position. The sun's magnetic field affects Earth's magnetic sphere. Example, auroras during solar maxima, but changes are cycle-driven. I think they're cycle-driven and positional-driven. I think it's both. Okay, so standard model. So the sun emits electromagnetic radiation. We know that it emits radiation. We've already talked about this. And it's moving. Yeah, so is it a monopole? Is it a dipole? Possibly a dipole. Earth possibly being a monopole, but I'll get into that. Okay, so contained cosmos. A local sun on a ring path suggests a flat enclosed system, challenging the 13.8 billion year old expanding universe. Yeah, I'm definitely challenging that. So a moving monopole could explain auroral shifts, but Earth's magnetic reversals are eternal, not solar driven. Yeah, they are. Yeah, I think they are. Okay. Oh yeah, because then he talked about gravity. Wait, let's see here. Oh, mentioned freaking gravity. So we're getting into gravity here soon. Okay. Lies. Okay. Okay, so I asked, do you think gravity is a monopole? And so, yes, gravity can be considered a monopole in the context of classical physics and general relativity, as it exhibits a field with a single pole, i.e. an attractive force. I'm saying there's north and south poles that they talk about. There's also repulsing versus attracting, push and pull, etc. forces as well that magnets can't create, exhibit, emanating from a mass without an opposing anti-gravity pole. Okay, so in physics, a monopole refers to a field with a single type of charge or influence, unlike magnetic fields, which are dipoles. See, as soon as you you give an example, because what I think that Einstein and others were talking about, Newton, sorry, he's explaining magnetism, monopoles, and dipoles, and how they are expressed within this cosmos, and he's calling that attraction of these particles based on temperature, pressure, and density, whatever you want to call it, and he like this attraction towards the center of the earth, like this attraction towards this possible magnet that is at the core of the earth or the center of the earth, and alleging that that's gravity when it's not, just a monopole, and it exhibits monopole like behaviors. So I think that if people like Newton and others had like an appropriate model of the earth, representation of the earth, while they were doing their incredible work, they would have came to the same conclusions that I'm trying to come to as well, to try to explain how this is a cosmos based on photons and phonons, or light and sound, and these are expressed within this cosmos via electromagnetism, and the barriers of this contained environment are ionized particles like helium and hydrogen, these alpha particles, whatever you want to call them, that are ionized particles that are more like positively charged particles or matter molecules that are void of electrons and electric charge. They're void the higher up they go. And so anyway, I just think that what we're calling gravity, like I've been saying for friggin' years, is it acts like a magnetic force, in my opinion, depending on things like temperature, pressure, and density, or what the matter of the molecule is made up of, whether it's more able to generate electricity or magnetism. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So gravity, alleging right here, a monopole with only attraction, as all mass, positive or neutral, contributes to the field. And so again, this is where, like, even although we are on this flat plane of inertia, we are not as dense, obviously, as what's below us. We're kind of like in the plane of inertia that where humans can thrive, right? Like, too much below or too much above the area where we're living in is not conducive to us thriving within our environments. And actually, even the further you go away from like the equatorial ring or the sun's travel path, the less the harder it is to survive even on Earth, right? Like, there's like an optimal zone or a fertile zone that seems to have like better seasons, so it's not as hot or cold, not as extreme in its climate, obviously, and where you have like an entire year where you can grow food and hunt and fish, whereas in Canada we have seasons, and in northern regions you have seasons, and further south you go, or away from the center, away from the sun's path. Okay, so I asked, could the Earth's center be a monopole? Okay, so yes, the Earth's center could theoretically be considered a monopole. And also I want to say, I don't believe that water is being stuck on this friggin' on the outside of a ball, because of things like gravity, and it doesn't impact like other beings, like this rotation they're alleging that the Earth has in one direction, traveling eastwards, right? The sun actually, when we see it in the sky, it travels from east to west every single day. And we're alleging that this is that we shouldn't believe our senses. We shouldn't believe what we feel on the ground being stationary. We shouldn't believe that the sun is what moving above us in a circular path. And they're saying this was debunked during Copernicus's time, when the greats of the past, like Eudoxus and Hypatia, etc., were saying that this is a geocentric cosmos, and that the luminaries above us, they're traveling a circular ring path, smaller and more local to our environment, not trillions of years away, as NASA scientists try to allege. Okay, so the Earth's gravitational field is modeled as a monopole with force. Oh, of course, how convenient. But no, it's okay. Radiating outward from its center of mass. No, you got it wrong. Confirmed by satellite measurements showing a radial attractive field. So Einstein trying to say things like space-time curvature. My God. Why do you have to complicate things so much? Okay. So your theory suggests replacing gravity with magnetic field as the fundamental force governing celestial and terrestrial interactions, proposing that gravity can be altered by electrostatics, temperature, pressure, and the density of matter, gas, or particles. This is a bold reinterpretation of established physics, challenging Newton's law of universal gravitation and Einstein's general theory of relativity. Yeah, I'm challenging that. So I'm others as well. And I would like to win a Nobel Prize on my breakthroughs and have conversations with, well, first, don't put the cart before the horse. I would like to sit down with scientists and physicists, astrophysicists, and discuss my proposals and my theories. Okay, so definition: gravity is attractive force between masses. Isn't that interesting? But these masses have to be magnetic in order to be pulled to the to the magnet, this monopole magnet. I just heard something interesting. And so I'm on a breakthrough here. I just want to see if someone's trying to message me. Okay, anyway. Yeah, I talk about helium balloons. I talk about water and different states of matter, whether it be solid, liquid, gas, or plasma. Okay, so I'm talking about lighter particles, gases rising, heavy ones falling, increasing electrons. Okay, so ionizing gases rise and form radiation belts at toroidal fields. I've talked about all of this before, ionization of gases and plasmas and things like that, so I don't want to be redundant. I did ask again what the ocean floor is made of. Basalt and igneous rocks. It's covered with sediments, including terrigenous, biogenic. Basalt. Flat areas, 3,000 to 6,000 meters deep with thick sediment cover in the abyssal plains. So minerals, iron, magnesium, and trace elements in basalt. Iron is magnetic. Magnesium is not under standard conditions because like the ocean floor is made largely of iron and anyway. Okay, sun has a magnetic field, yes. Anyway. It's a lot of information that I have shared. Did I catch Jaren's debate last night with Alan? Space audits from Aether Cosmology was pretty interesting. I did not. And I've shared some things from Aether Cosmology before as well. And I do find them very interesting. And I've looked at the Discord page, which is linked on some of the description boxes on some of the videos. I don't agree with everything that his theories are proposed, but again, they're theories, right? I could be way off, and I would love to have these conversations or discussions with people like that, or Ken Wheeler. And but I don't know. But oh, you shared with me the link. I will definitely take a look at that. But I do have to go because I think there's someone at my door. So anyways, on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.